you. Mayor Pro Tem, can you hear me?
That's good.
Yes, I can.
Okay, wonderful. Councillor Hott, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Good evening and welcome to the Westminster City Council study session for March 2nd, 2026. Thank you for joining us this evening. Please remember that our meetings are governed by the rules of decorum posted inside chamber doors. We ask all attendees to remain in a respectful environment. No disruptions, threats, or audible expressions of support or opposition are permitted. Signs and placards are prohibited, and all attendees must remain seated in designated areas. City Council reports. Councillor Azadi?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Councillor Hott, did you have a report?
No, thank you.
Councillor Barajas?
Yes, I'll be quick. We had the Chamber of the City, which was great. I just wanted to give a quick thank you to everyone who was in attendance that came up and kind of chatted with me afterward. It was nice getting to hear from both residents and those doing business here in the city. I was at the Environmental Advisory Board this past week. We had a debrief on light pollution, and once they do a little bit more research, they would like to advise council. So we can potentially either schedule a moment for that, or I can kind of bring some of their memos to us. But they're excited to kind of dig into that. So just so everyone's aware, I went to North Glen High School this past week as well and served as a panelist for some program-based learning or problem-based learning, and got a chance to meet other panelists and hear the students who were challenged to come up with a solution to rampant misinformation with AI and social media. We had the rental ad hoc meeting this past week as well, and that was really nice. I wanted to mention two things from there. First, a very dear resident of Westminster, Carl McGurl, who is a Navy veteran, was a Navy veteran. He passed away. He was a loved member of that group, and we offered a moment of silence for him, and I'm just really grateful for his advocacy for housing equality and housing dignity, and his, constant courage to be able to come to those meetings and speak. So, when the deputy city manager offered a moment of silence, I think the whole room kind of felt the gravity of it. So, anyway, that was something really sad that we got updated on. Also, I just wanted to give a shout out to the city. The direction that the meetings are taking. They're going line by line through the municipal code, taking all of the feedback from all the stakeholders there, and the fact that we're going in a detailed direction means that we are getting feedback on every piece, and that feedback is also directed. So we're kind of moving through it in a structured way. So I'm kind of glad for that. And I know that a lot of people there, they had an opportunity to speak on things that maybe weren't on the agenda as well, so there's still kind of that attention to representation. We had the North Area Transit Alliance meeting, which was great. The Adams County Commissioners were there, and they expressed some concern that CDOT might not be supportive of the expansion that they're pushing for 270. More to come on that potentially, but they're kind of strategizing on ways to advocate for that expansion. And then I wasn't there, but because we were all at strategic planning this weekend, but during the strategic planning, the low-cost vaccine clinic happened, and my partner Katie got a chance to go out there, though she couldn't even get a chance to say thanks to the volunteers because they broke another record this year with 254 residents. I don't know if that's per animal or per resident, but they helped 254 times at least, which broke the record from last year. So it was a really busy event and everyone was pretty exhausted. So special thanks to the Westy Dog Park Guardians who kind of helped strategize around that. And they reached out to me and wanted to extend their thanks to Chief Hobbert and the Westy PD. And that's my update.
Thank you. So I went to the Westminster Chamber State of the City, and our mayor did a good job, and so did our city manager speaking there and telling about our city. I went to Lunch and Learn Master Your Finance. It was about small business taxes and some of the new laws. Just anyone that has a business, you can, as of this year for 2026, you'll be able to write off $2,000 per contract worker instead of the $600 that were had previously, so that was new. I went to Precious Child open house. They've come a long way since the garage they used to be in that my daughters used to help when they were in honor society. So that was great to see. They're helping 2,000 families a week there. So they're always in need of baby clothes, hygiene products, and always food. So anyone out there listening, drop off any of those items to them. I tried to go to the Rent Housing Ad Hoc meeting online, and I never could get on. So I don't know if it's my end or what the deal is, but I didn't get on. I went to Igniting Purpose benefit for Tim Tebow. He's very inspirational and motivational. I probably need that to keep motivated. And then also I had Teacher Appreciation Night for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's a 26th year. High schoolers from 5 different high schools that picked a teacher that inspired them the most in their life and honored them. It was a very nice evening. We had several principals. We had the superintendent of Adams 12 gave the speech, so it was a nice evening. And that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Johnson?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I was busy with my other job this last week, but I did have the opportunity to join you at the Rotary Club meeting, which was great to learn. They had a presentation from one of the folks from Dr. Cog to talk about aging in our community, which was really fascinating, and also got an update on the harrowing stories about the contingent that was in Mexico a couple of weeks ago and got stuck there for a couple of days, but thankfully they were on their way home, and those folks were really in good spirits about that.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem, did you have an update?
Just a thank you to staff for, and to the Westminster Chamber of Commerce, and to all of the school districts who attended and spoke at the State of the City event last week. And I believe that's, was that video, is that recorded so that people can review it? No? Oh, it's a shame. I don't know why I was thinking it was, but the conversation that was had around the state of the school districts and what they're facing and the challenges was pretty eye-opening. So, yeah, and our state budget isn't going to help. So anyway, it was a sobering conversation, but I do appreciate that everybody participated, and it was an overall great program. And then we went, the strategic planning, again, I just want to thank all staff who attended. That was all of our directors and management and support staff. So I think that went really well on Saturday. So yeah, that's about all I have for the past week. Thanks.
Thank you. I will echo those sentiments. Big thank you to our chamber and to staff and to the 3 school districts that joined us for the State of the City. I am really grateful that they were able to participate and give a full update. And I'm sorry that more folks could not see the event but we do have photos up, and so it was a great event. Hopefully we'll catch you at the next one. Big thank you to everyone here, counselors and our staff for the strategic planning meeting. That was a successful day on Saturday, very long, and I know some of us are feeling that today, but thank you for your time and putting that in effort into our upcoming year. And then I attended a Precious Child open house with Counselor Ireland, and she did a great update already. But again, if you ever have food or clothes or anything like that to donate, our community does need your supplies more than ever. And they are, as was already stated, really successful. They've hired a record number of staff over there. They've got a big facility. It's very impressive work that they're doing. And then I attended a significant meeting last week on anti-Semitism, and I attended that with Mayor Castriata. Our Chief Hubbard was there as well. District Attorney Brian Mason was there, as well as several of our school districts from the area and community members. And that was an initial meeting to kick off efforts on combating anti-Semitism in our regions, our combined regions. And so I think that was very successful, and there will be more to come in the upcoming months. And then I did not receive any notice on Butterfly Pavilion, but I'm not sure. Councillor Hott, did you attend the meeting with the Butterfly Pavilion? Do we have an update on that one?
Lindsay Kimball was there. They had it at 2 o'clock. The meeting was at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and so I was not able to attend because I had work.
Okay. I will get an update from Director Kimball. So good to know. And otherwise get an update from them. And that's everything. Thank you so much. So with that, City Manager, do you have a report?
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a...
I just have one thing.
I apologize.
I failed to say that I went to the Go Glow ribbon cutting, and I didn't know what Go Glow was, but it's a spray-on tan that you don't turn orange, and it doesn't dry out your skin, and it's very moisturizing. Anyway, they have so much business. I was so impressed that they're going to open another location and they wanted to open in Broomfield, and I'm trying to convince them the new downtown. That's why I want the 4-hour parking, because they're concerned about the parking.
We will get them parking if we can get them downtown, right? I could use this tan.
So shout out to them, because they're doing really well.
That's great. Thank you.
Thanks.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a brief report this evening. If I could have the next slide, please. You spoke about this tonight. I wanted to highlight for our community that on Saturday, February 28th, so this past Saturday, City Council led a strategic plan workshop to refine and strengthen the city's strategic plan. That was an effort supported by the city's leadership team, so all of our directors were at the table to support, and City Council then set the city's vision, mission, and strategic priorities for Westminster. That updated strategic plan is being worked on now and will be brought back to City Council to get that in place. And for those who are interested and missed it, the live stream is available on the city's Facebook and on our YouTube channel if you want to catch that event. That's a picture from Saturday of all of us just after we wrapped it up. Next slide, please. I also want to announce this for the community. It's our annual Parks, Recreation, and Libraries Job Fair, and that's happening this Saturday at the City Park Recreation Center on Sheridan Boulevard. So that will start at 9 a.m. and run right through till 1 p.m. And that's where our Parks, Recreation, and Libraries professionals will be interviewing for hundreds of seasonal positions in aquatics, libraries, golf, park maintenance, and recreation. Applicants can learn more about those opportunities and save time by pre-submitting an early application at westminsterco.gov/jobs. Next slide, please. I have 2 slides covering tonight's agenda. In your packet for public consumption is an information-only memo regarding the Mile High Flood District and changes to the Little Dry Creek and Shaw Heights tributary floodplain. And that flood district is embarking on a community and stakeholder engagement outreach, and so that information is contained in there, and then next steps. Next up, we have 5 presentations listed. There are actually only 4 presentations tonight, and then the 5th is a discussion. The first presentation is on the city's Unified Development Code. That's an update. The second is 2026 department budget roadmap presentations. That's our finance department as well as our information technology department. Our both directors are here tonight to present on their departments. And then we have the third item, proposed amendments to the Westminster Municipal Code. That's covering multiple areas, and our city attorney's office will walk us through those. And then next up after that is also with our city attorney's office, proposed amendments to the Westminster Municipal Code related to the Colorado Supreme Court case, People v. Camp. And then finally, for discussion and direction confirmation from council, a proposed creation of the city's new water affordability task force initiative. Next slide, please. Also tonight are 2 executive sessions, the first of which is being held for the purpose of receiving legal advice regarding collective bargaining matters, and the second executive session is regarding a possible property acquisition. Next slide, please. This week, Wednesday, March 4th, this is canceled. There is no special permit and license board meeting this Wednesday. And then, as I've mentioned, on Saturday, please do have your friends and family consider a career, starting a career at the city in one of our seasonal positions with our awesome Parks, Recreation, and Libraries department. And that's at drop-in job fair at City Park Rec Center, starting at 9 a.m., running through 1 p.m. Next slide, please. For our next meeting of City Council, that's next Monday, March 9th. I'll have 3 information-only items. The first will be on waste diversion initiatives in the city. The second will be on open space ecosystem management and pollinator practices. And then finally on water supply and drought. That's an update for City Council and the community. And then there are 10 consent agenda items with 2 second readings included. Next slide, please. Also that night will be a meeting of the Westminster Economic Development Authority. There is a new business item, which is the authorization to execute an agreement to furnish activation services in downtown Westminster with the Westminster Chamber of Commerce. And I believe there was some discussion of this on Saturday about further activating the downtown. And this is a follow-up to that. And then post-meeting study session that night, we'll have 2 presentations, the first of which is a department budget roadmap presentation with 2 departments. Again, our police chief will come in and present on the police department, and our human resources director on HR. And then finally, we have a preparatory session on the 2026 National League of Cities, or NLC, Congressional Cities Conference briefing that the majority of City Council will be attending a little bit later this month in Washington, D.C. And then finally, an executive session matter, which is discussion of a personnel matter, and currently scheduled to be a quarterly check-in for me, your city manager. Next slide, please. Finally, as always, contact us primarily through the Access Westminster tool, which can be a mobile device or direct westminsterco.gov/Access Westminster, phone 303-658-2400, our website, westminsterco.gov, and then, of course, I'm still prompting people to have a look at our transparency portal, which you can get through the main page of our city website. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions to the city manager's report? And then I'll point out that this also includes the Mile High Flood District update that was included. Are there any questions or comments? Councilor Barajas?
For residents interested in attending the job fair, should they be prepared with anything? Should they come with anything to the job fair?
That's a great question. Barbara, do you know whether they need to come with applications ready, material?
Or like resumes or something like that?
I don't know. I apologize. We'll get that back for you.
Don't know, but I would encourage people to check out that link that I provided earlier. I can say that one more
I
time.
haven't looked at the link either.
I'll try to get some information for you by the end of this meeting as well.
Yeah, we'll get, thank you for the question, Councillor. Let me just get that website. I'll read that out one more time. Yeah, westminsterco.gov/jobs. And so that's where the details will be. We do encourage, I know that we do encourage people to pre-apply. That's probably the best move. If people are interested, get that in early and then show up on Saturday and check out the different positions that are available to apply for. And then we'll get back to you specifically with whether folks should bring something with them when they come.
Awesome, thank you.
Councillor Johnson?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for the presentation. One of the questions I had about the Mile High Floodplain District expansion is that also including expanding the taxing authority because the boundaries are expanding?
It's actually not an expansion of the district. Actually, I'll have Andrew come to explain, but it's actually just updating the floodplain maps. So,
Okay.
I apologize. You and Andrew want to join us?
Andrew, I believe I heard the question is something regarding a new or expanded taxing
Well,
authority.
yeah, the question is if they're expanding the boundaries of the floodplains, does that also expand the taxing authority boundaries that they utilize to do?
I don't think so, no.
No, it's not changing the district boundaries itself. It's simply updating the maps that are currently within the district.
Got it, thank you.
And then I also had a comment on the floodplain just before folks take off, which is that it looks like formerly we said 17 either businesses or homes or whatnot units were affected in Westminster, and now that's been updated to 245. Is that right?
That number includes properties.
Properties,
So, which would
245
have residential as well as any commercial.
Okay, and then this seems like the beginning of that conversation. So how have they been informed at this time?
How has
Those updated properties, what outreach have we completed?
the city has not conducted any outreach at this point, but there will be notices going out about the open house that the district will be having. And it may be in the report on the dates of those. I think they've been scheduled now.
April 22nd is the one for Arvada, and then April 29th is for at the MAC for Westminster and unincorporated Adams County.
Thank you for
focus.
reiterating those dates. So I'll say that one more time for folks listening. So you can join us April 29th at the MAC for an update from the Mile High Flood District if you believe or if you have been impacted by the changes to the flood district.
They should be receiving notification via mail specifically about these events so that they can come and learn more.
Thank you.
And there's information on the website as well.
So do any of the projects down there, such as the Uplands, it made it worse? Because that's a lot of houses. And flood insurance is expensive. I know, because I tried to buy a house in Connecticut once, and they're all on floodplains almost. If you're on a floodplain, you try not to be anyway.
With regard to the Uplands did build a very large detention structure on their property, and it accounts for the added runoff from their site, but then included some additional capacity to help mitigate what were existing problems along Shaw Drive. So Uplands did not make it worse. In fact, their detention pond was intended to make it better in that localized area. In terms of the impacts and flood insurance, right, it will be some time yet before this makes its way into the FEMA maps, and when those maps become effective or applicable, at which time then if you have a mortgage on your home, that it's possible if you're still in one of these flood zones that you might be impacted by that requirement. But it's
Not good news.
the reason for the updates right now are just that the hydraulic modeling that's occurred has indicated that there are some properties that are in the floodplain where they have not been thought to be, so it's incumbent on the district to notify those properties ahead of time. But
What about during the 500-year flood that we had? Did they get flooded? Those houses get flooded? The ones that we're now saying that are in a flood zone? Because I think they would have got flooded during that event. if that were going to get flooded.
I don't have the history on that one, and neither does the staff outside. And that one, depending on where the rain occurred and which drainage basin they were in, they may or may not have been impacted by that.
Okay.
And for folks curious, you can look at the packet from tonight. There is a map loaded online. So thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay.
Mayor, I have an answer for Councilor Baraja's question. Anyone interested can just show up. Applications are there on the spot to fill out. No resumes needed, so don't have to bring any material. They'll actually conduct an interview on the spot, and then based on that, we'll provide further directions.
Thank you for the clarification.
Perfect. That brings us to this evening's presentations. City Manager, would you like to introduce the first presentation?
Yes, I have Mr. John McConnell, our planning manager, and Andrew Spurgeon, and they are going to lead us out in presentation 3A on the Unified Development Code by way of an update.
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Councilors. John McConnell, Planning Manager, and Andrew Spurgeon, Principal Planner. We're pleased to present to you tonight an update on the Unified Development Code, the progress that staff has made towards its completion, and also, in addition to the update, we're going to provide you with a little bit of background information, especially for the newer council members who haven't been a part of the previous updates. So with that said, I'll turn the presentation over to Andrew, and we look forward to your feedback and questions after the presentation's over.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Can everyone hear me okay? I'm Andrew Spurgeon. Again, happy to be here tonight, Mayor and Council. This will be an update on our Unified Development Code, or UDC is the abbreviation for that. With your feedback tonight, then we'll continue to work with the Planning Commission to refine that and then bring the final code back for adoption probably this summer is what we're looking at. The UDC Unified Development Code, it's a very technical document, so planners we can geek out to it all day long. It's something that's a little bit hard, I think, for the public to read generally, but it's basically the technical manual or the technical provisions that help us implement our comprehensive plan, as well as the sustainability plan, transportation mobility plan, things that were identified in the housing needs assessment and strategies from the redevelopment and adaptive reuse toolkit. To put it simply, the Unified Development Code is the rule book for how land gets entitled for development. The scope of the UDC is citywide. It's not focused on any one place. It's citywide. Having said that, we do have what are called specific plans for downtown Westminster and Westminster Station, and those are sort of independent documents with their own zoning and design standards for those areas, and those will continue to live on parallel with the UDC. The UDC is also not intended to be applied retroactively. It's intended to be used prospectively with future development in Westminster and redevelopment. And finally, I just note that it will be incorporated as a part of Westminster Municipal Code, but there's a lot of other code sections that are not part of this work, things that we sometimes deal with business licensing and that kind of thing, but alcohol sales, animal management, short-term rentals, restrictions on marijuana, those kind of things those are in other parts of city code. This slide shows you, speaking of how does this relate to other codes, this slide shows how initial land planning and project design would be guided by the UDC and its technical regulations. And then once a project is designed and construction advances, then typically it would fall under the city's engineering specs and then the various building codes, and then depending on the use, potentially other municipal code sections. Looking at our existing zoning, council's probably heard staff talk about planned unit development, PUD zoning a lot. The reason we talk about that a lot is that is our zoning for more than 2/3 of the city. It's our predominant development pattern, whether it's residential, commercial, industrial, or anything else. Most of our city is developed with planned unit development zoning. In concept, PUD zoning is write your own zoning. The allowed uses, the placement of the buildings, the amenities, those go per plan. And are unique to the site. And that's one reason Westminster's zoning system is really unique compared to other cities, because there's been this careful site-by-site planning with every case. Staff's recommended approach with the UDC would be to leave in place our existing planned unit developments, leave in place their allowed uses and densities, dimensional standards, those kind of things, and to, again, use the UDC prospectively for future development. If you look at our planned unit development zoning, the PUD zoning, the specific plan zoning, SPD zoning that we have in place for downtown and Westminster Station, plus our O1 open and agricultural zoning, that's 88% of the city's land area. So really only 12% of our city's land area has more conventional zoning that you might see in other communities. And that's predominantly located in our historic Westminster area. This slide just reemphasizes the comprehensive plan, which is sort of overarching over our regulations. The comprehensive plan, which is adopted through our code as a mandatory document. In some communities, a comprehensive plan is more of a guide. It's advisory. In Westminster, it's mandatory. And that's actually helpful for the Unified Development Code effort because the plan is already set in place. The location of land uses, the types of land uses, the amounts of land uses, the format of those developments. So again, the UDC just builds on that with more technical provisions. And importantly, the comprehensive plan can only be changed through council action. Looking at our land in Westminster and where the Unified Development Code would ostensibly apply, about 4.1% of our land area is vacant, but once you net out where we already have development applications under review, or in some cases already approved, it's really only about 2.3% of our remaining area. It's about 493 acres. And that encompasses roughly about 191 individual parcels or lots in different locations in Westminster. We did do a scan of some of our peer communities, knowing that we're not the only ones doing a land development code project. So we did look at what's been going on in Inglewood, Fort Collins, Lakewood, Littleton, and Thornton, and in a few cases we even called the staff to see, trying to understand what worked well for them and maybe what were some lessons learned through that. And so some of the common practices were provisions for accessory dwelling units, which Westminster's already adopted, and actually we did an amendment on first reading at the last council meeting. Moving away from as many public hearing requirements and moving to more administrative approvals was a common practice. And then the communities are generally looking at different types of parking reductions over what their older codes may have required. One of the things that we think is different with our approach, and we hope makes our code less controversial compared to some of the other communities, if those of you that have checked the media knows that in some of these communities there's been recall efforts, there's been petitions, and I think Lakewood actually had to undo their code and now they're going to re-adopt it. So we're trying not to do that. I think some of the differences, again, looking at applicability, looking out prospectively with future development and not trying to go retroactively rezoning anybody that's already there. Second, just to say again, our comprehensive plan remains controlling. Whatever this code ends up doing, the comprehensive plan remains controlling for land uses and densities and that kind of thing. And then third, I would mention the recent state legislation. Some of the other communities, notably Lakewood, they tried to roll it all into their larger code project, which seems to have created some confusion among residents and some concerns in some areas. And so we would propose that we continue to bring those items to City Council as separate conversations, such as previously staff brought code amendments to relax the occupancy standards, so that would remain. The accessory dwelling units is something else staff has worked separately on, and so we propose that we would continue to engage with council separately on those items rather than trying to tuck it into this larger omnibus code effort. Just looking at some of the key policy areas, we tried to frame these around, sort of 3 broad topic areas, and this is based on, some of the input we've had from residents, input from our planning commission. We did talk to the inclusivity board last year, and then we earlier had some input from the environmental advisory board. In the area of inclusivity, thinking about updating to provide for a broader range of housing types, thinking specifically about the strategies identified in the housing needs assessment and opportunities to support starter homes in Westminster. Provisions for adaptive reuse, reducing some of the regulatory barriers faced when repurposing older buildings for new uses. And then something that we're still fleshing out with this UDC that we hope to incorporate in the final draft would be making differentiation between parts of our city that are more urban in character and areas that are more suburban in character, because we realize it's not a one-size-fits-all. We think there's some areas in Westminster that lend themselves to a more compact format, and then there's areas that really lend themselves to a lower density, more suburban format. So having those different options is really not something we have a lot of discretion with in our current standards. Thinking about mobility, updating our parking requirements, including bicycle parking, multimodal transportation provisions, transit stop enhancements, electric vehicle infrastructure, and then related to sustainability, thinking about serviceable waste collection facilities, healthy food access, low water landscaping with a native plant requirement to support pollinators, protection of natural areas, sustainable building materials. Councilor Barajas, I heard in the comments you mentioned the Environmental Advisory Board talking about lighting. We do have some updated lighting standards that support the concern for light pollution in Westminster, and we're happy to meet with that board if that's something that would be sensible at this point. This slide, I'm not going to go through all of these, but this just shows as we're starting to write standards, how these standards are going to be updated from our current requirements, and then this concept of differentiating suburban and urban contexts with different context standards specific to each of those. How does the Unified Development Code impact me? We get asked this question a lot. For most households and businesses, the UDC will probably not change their situation very much. With the plan unit developments, if those remain in place, that's certainly most of our city and specifically most of our residential communities. When a property is proposed for major redevelopment with new buildings or new uses, that's when the UDC would come into play. Again, the comprehensive plan would remain in effect and controlling, but doing the Unified Development Code gives us the opportunity to implement the comprehensive plan in areas that we've been held back from in our current standards, such as housing diversity, the other concepts that I talked about on the previous slide. I will now turn it over to John to talk about this one item, and then we'll wrap up.
Yes, thank you, Andrew. And so as we close our presentation, I wanted to bring up a discussion with the City Council and ask for your input and direction. It's regarding the land use of event facilities or event centers. As you might have noticed, and we've been monitoring this for several years now, event centers have evolved over the last several years. They've evolved from the more traditional event centers that we're used to, like some of the more well-known ones here in Westminster, where they're small in scale and square footage. They typically cater to business events and conventions and other private events. What we're seeing, what we have seen over the past few years is a pretty significant change in the way some of them operate. And many times what we're seeing is less of an event center in the traditional sense and more of a live entertainment venue. And unfortunately, in Westminster's land use codes, they haven't kept up with that evolution. And so we don't have adequate regulations to distinguish between event centers of a live entertainment nature, concert hall nature, versus the traditional small-scale event centers. That said, we would like to take care to make sure that we recommend some appropriate new regulations for this new version of Event Center within the Unified Development Code. We would like for the City Council to consider a pause in issuing any new business licenses or land use approvals for these larger event centers. The pause would be through a temporary moratorium, and we would recommend 6 months, and that would allow us to get through the remaining steps of the Unified Development Code, incorporate new regulations, including not only land use regulations, but business licensing. That has also not kept pace with the evolution of event centers. So we appreciate your feedback and direction on that. Again, staff's recommending this. If you choose to go in this direction, staff can prepare the ordinance and bring it back to you at a public hearing for your review and consideration.
Thank you.
With that, I think that's the one more slide. My apologies.
Thank you, John. Yeah, just to wrap up, in terms of next steps, if you're supporting what John just introduced, then the moratorium would be the first thing that staff brings back for council consideration. With your input tonight, we would update the Unified Development Code draft. We're doing some analysis of our staff resources and how we would implement all the provisions of the Unified Development Code. We would then work with the city attorney to do a detailed legal review, make sure everything is just right from a legal perspective, then back to the Planning Commission for their recommendation, and then bring it to City Council for adoption, again, targeting this summer for that.
Thank you. Questions? Councilor Island?
How many of these event centers do we have so far that we're talking about doing a moratorium on? I mean, how's it going to affect business? Like, for instance, we had the rock business. They had all these rocks at the Weston. How does it affect all these businesses?
I believe that event was a special event and it was handled under a special event permit, but certainly we are aware that the Westin does host fairly large events. The types of events that the Westin has traditionally hosted are not what we're talking about when we're talking about this, what I'm calling an evolution of event centers. What we're seeing in other places is a tendency for an event center to be a live entertainment venue, concerts, ticketed events, not business conventions and other conferences.
So you're not talking about business conventions. It's still okay for them to have them.
Yes, and when we refer to a moratorium, it's for future applications, not existing ones. So if the council did choose to initiate the moratorium, it wouldn't affect any lawfully established and licensed business now.
Okay.
And I would add too that it's staff's intent to focus the moratorium not broadly on all types of event centers, but just those that are larger in scale and really are fundamentally live entertainment venues.
And I'm trying to understand, how does this UDC affect the city council and our job?
Well, the UDC is largely going to be an administrative tool to implement this council's comprehensive plan. So the council has a newly adopted comprehensive plan. It sets the expectations for land use in a lot of detail all across the city, and the Unified Development Code is the regulatory mechanism to make sure that vision is materialized on the ground. So I would say there's very little effect on the city council directly, if I understand your question correctly.
Okay, because you told that the other cities, the citizens got upset, so I don't want that coming. And I don't want to become like we're the royal family and we just go to events and we don't make any decisions.
Yes.
Because that's the way the cities are going in our state. And that's not okay with me. They're trying to take home rule away at the state level on almost everything. The size of lots, parking. Who are we trying to attract, I want to know? Because families are getting out of Dodge in the state with this stuff. So we're going to be left with old people and single people. So we need to start thinking how we're going to economically grow and stop doing this garbage. So I want to know if this is from the state, any of this, because we said we were not going to comply.
Correct. This is the implementation of our comprehensive plan, and the state is not involved in this at all. And I want to emphasize something that Andrew touched on. When Andrew discussed his knowledge and research on what some of these other cities had experienced, these cities, many of them, were completely replacing and overhauling their land use regulations. They were rezoning single-family residential districts to allow for higher density. That is not what this Unified Development Code is doing. As Andrew mentioned, the zoning that's in place today essentially stays the same. If you're in a single-family neighborhood, you're not being rezoned. This will apply to, frankly, the very little land we have left to develop in any redevelopment scenarios. So it's very intentional in that it's designed to be a tool to essentially retool our factory. We've gone from a greenfield city with lots of land to develop to an aged city which is built out. And so we have to rethink our development codes to adjust to that paradigm. So it's not at all like some of what other cities are doing. But Andrew, did you have anything to add to that? Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right. Other questions?
I have questions.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Great. One, I just want to say thank you for thinking incredibly holistically and thoughtfully about the approach here. And I really appreciated the comparison of what's happening with the updates with the other cities. So thanks for doing that. I just have a few questions around some of the things that you're going to be working on regarding standards. And so I'll just ask, I probably have like 6 things. They'll go quickly. For adaptive reuse and infill standards, are you looking to just build out specific context-sensitive standards, or what's, I guess, is that going to be in every, I don't know, I'm just kind of curious what your approach is. I won't name a range, but yeah.
So generally, the proposed regulations deal with 2 main aspects: the site development standards, and then the building standards for the building or buildings that would go on that site. And so with the building standards, we are proposing something specific to adaptive reuse, which we're defining because we have had applicants that sometimes have different ideas of what adaptive reuse means. In the proposed code, adaptive reuse refers to reusing an existing building for a new use, and possibly adding onto it or popping the top or something like that. And the code is drafted to have more of a sliding scale of the applicability of our standards. So when someone's doing that, they wouldn't be hit with a full litany of the newest code requirements. There'd be more of this sliding scale depending on the size of the building and the amount of changes or expansion that were proposed. And then considering the context of what's around it and thinking about if they would need to meet the parking requirements, or if there's other, as an example, the parking requirements, or if based on the context, perhaps parking is not as much as a need there. So really a lot of flexibility we don't have there. And similarly, the infill that you mentioned, that would have a similar sort of sliding scale provisions related to the applicability of the citywide standards. But similarly, we're also writing a definition for infill that it refers to something that's in an area that's otherwise built out, so that that's not abused by someone who's not in an infill situation.
Can we, or do we have provision for like the scale of those buildings in relation to neighboring existing buildings? Because I know, I'm just remembering one project that was brought forth in the concept plan process, where it was essentially some snout houses, some, next to single family, 1-story. So I was just kind of curious to see if we're kind of addressing situations like that where it wasn't good for the project itself and also kind of potentially impactful to the neighbors.
Short answer, yes. With infill, and I remember that case you're thinking of. I believe it was down on Utica.
Yeah.
We do have compatibility provisions, and in fact, we've actually been suggested that when this code is done to apply for an APA award, because we've been told they think this is the most context-based code that anyone has seen in Colorado. So we're super excited about that. I'm getting ahead of myself though.
Yeah, it's great.
But we can feel the excitement. The infill nature is definitely a consideration, and looking at those transitions between land uses, that's something we've sometimes had a hard time with now. So looking at step backs before there's additional heights, landscape buffering on the edges when there's two very different uses, and those type of things.
Okay, great. Thank you. And there's nothing wrong about being excited. I have to do one for my day job, so it's fun stuff. Let's see. Curious about the missing middle / kind of home ownership element, that like how the standards would be emphasizing home ownership.
Sure. So
you had it in the concept thing, yeah.
Sure. So the consultant who's helped us along on this journey, we learned was also the consultant on the starter homes toolkit that I believe was circulated recently. So we felt really great that it's like, oh, you have the same consultant. So generally we checked all the boxes when I looked at that playbook, but again, what's lacking now, we have design standards for single family homes, single family attached, multifamily, but we don't really have specific provisions for smaller lot homes. We've struggled sometimes with our townhome provisions, and so UDC is written to have I don't know how to say it any other way, in that there'll be more options. It's going to be more of a choose your own adventure with the housing product, instead of trying to fit into one of our boxes that we have today. And so, some of those options include a smaller lot product, and something that I thought was very unique, and it was recommended in the starter home playbook, was actually in a development maybe that's larger lot, but you have a portion of it that's smaller lots within it, to have some different price points and different types of households that could be in one community. So I feel good about where we're going with that.
Are we going to do like bungalow courts and things like that?
Bowling court
The garden
is an option. We've actually wondered if that's the right term to use, because that seems to not be something we hear from our partners in the development community. So we've tried to stick to language like a small lot. We do have a cottage housing option in the draft, which is somewhat along those lines, and that has more of a shared green space with reductions in yards and that kind of thing.
Great, that's really exciting. I'm sorry. I was also curious about food access, how we're tackling that with the code.
Sure. Well, we've certainly heard there's a concern for access to food, grocery stores, and we're talking about grocery stores mainly. So looking at some of the recommendations in the sustainability plan and the comprehensive plan implementation plan actually is to create zoning provisions that would limit the types of businesses that have crowded out grocery stores in places across the Front Range. So introducing special use permit requirements for dollar stores and those type of uses that have opened in centers and kept grocery stores out.
Yeah, that's really cool. I guess my last question is about just the EV infrastructure. I know that some of the requirements that we have right now with the energy code and with the state's model electric code, that the EV requirements are pretty high, particularly for commercial developments or for new commercial developments. Just curious if we've evaluated that at all or have some type of flexibility with or waiver that we can apply to those.
As it relates to the state requirements, I might have to spend a little time looking at that, but what I can tell you, what we've incorporated into the draft is more of a carrot-based approach to providing electric vehicle infrastructure. For example, where we're introducing maximum parking requirements, we're saying that the electric vehicles would not be subject to that requirement, so they wouldn't be penalized for doing that. And also looking at things in our code, recognizing that the technology is evolving, and so looking at getting such as gas stations to ensure they provide electric vehicle charging as vehicle technology changes over time, so gas stations don't become obsolete.
Man, you guys have thought of everything. This is totally going to be worthy of an award when you're done. I'm really excited. It's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hott, did you have any questions?
I don't have any questions. Just I'm super impressed and I'm excited, and thank you for all the work that you've done, and I'm definitely supportive.
All right. Councillor Brajas?
Do we need to give feedback in this session right now around the moratorium and that, or
yes?
What? Okay. So I am, I guess in favor. So if we initiate a temporary moratorium, what would be the kind of sunset of that, or what would be the mechanism for revisiting that with it being temporary in nature?
We're recommending 6 months, which is a window of time that should get us beyond the conclusion of our Unified Development Code presentation to you and allow you to consider that for adoption. And so we believe that 6 months would be enough. Again, it's to allow staff to give some thoughtful consideration to how we would recommend that you regulate different types of event centers of different scales and natures.
And to clarify, sorry if I can speak up, Swan, to clarify, this is like a temporary moratorium on the building of new event centers, is that correct?
It would be a temporary moratorium on the permitting of any land use approvals, building permits, tenant finishes for existing buildings, all for new applications. Any event center that's lawfully in place right now with this license permitted and all that would not be affected by this. It's just for future licenses.
Okay, I can support this.
Okay, other questions? Okay, well then I've got a few of my own, which is, can we define what our event centers currently are? Because my understanding is they might have been based mostly around churches. So have we looked at redefining what our event centers are and maybe separating them?
Yes, that will be part of the process. And in fact, we'll actually have to create a definition in tandem with the moratorium so that it's very clear to the city council and the citizens as to what the pause, what types of businesses the pause would be applicable to. Right now, our city code, and I'll just pull it up and read to you briefly. Event centers are lumped into one type of land use. That includes assembly halls, event centers, churches, includes private functions such as weddings, receptions, conferences, and meetings. So we would like to pull those apart. We obviously, an event center, even the more common types of event centers function very differently from religious institutions, for example. So with the Unified Development Code, we're going to take a more finite approach to land use designations, pulling those apart. But since we don't define event center in particular in our code for the moratorium, we have to start by recommending a definition that's applicable to the moratorium, and then we'll refine that further with the permanent regulations that we recommend to you.
That's helpful, thank you. And then while I'll say I agree with pausing for 6 months while we get this further defined, I respect some of the concerns I've heard from neighbors of event centers and this is why we're approaching this, right? And, we are working to build these key attractions within our city. So to me, this seems like another great opportune time to look at a noise ordinance. I've mentioned this a few times, and I think that perhaps even if that only came in at a certain hour, if that was 9, 9:30, or 10, we can have those discussions. I think that there's other ways to control events other than, the zoning of it. And so I'd like us to take a look at that. And maybe perhaps, again, time, I don't know what our time restrictions are, if any, but maybe taking a look at that throughout our city, what hours do we allow events to go to? So absolutely, and just some items for food for thought. As far as the UDC, I'm very excited that you're looking at multimodal transit. I'm very excited that you're looking at the mixed use of zoning and retail. I'm very excited you've included sustainability in your thoughtful creation of this, especially with so little land left to plan with. And so I'm really enthusiastic about it. So thank you. I appreciate all that time and work you did. Councilor Zadi.
Quick question. Does this include the standards around sprinkler systems?
The Unified Development Code does not. That would fall under building codes.
When is that coming to us? Isn't there an update regarding the requirement?
I'm not aware of that. Andrew, do you have any information on that?
I think we heard that on the 23rd. Director Kimball.
Lindsay Kimball, Community Services Director. So we adopted the 2021 building codes approximately 2 years ago, and generally we adopt a new set of codes every 6 years. So that building code update, you may be referring to the property maintenance code update, which we expect to bring back in late summer.
Does that one have a sprinkler requirement for single family and attached?
No.
There? Just the building code?
Just the building code.
So if we wanted to update that, we need to request it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, it sounds like that's something we can get back to. I heard a couple yeses, but I didn't get everyone. So is there anyone that's a nay on pausing for the event centers for 6 months? Folks online? Okay, I don't hear any nays, so I think that you have the support you need. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That moves us to our next presentation, which is department priorities around finance. City Manager.
Mayor, thank you. This is our series where each department director presents a very concise overview of their department. Tonight we have two, the first of which is our finance department, and our chief financial officer, Ezekiel Vasquez, is here to present for you his department.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. I'm Ezekiel Vasquez, Chief Financial Officer, and I'm very happy to be here with you tonight. I'm going to give you a brief overview of our finance department, our 2026 priorities, and how they support your strategic plan. So diving in here, this shows where the finance department fits in within the broad organization. We are under Deputy City Manager Doerr's scope of authority. And we are made up of 4 divisions. Total full-time equivalencies in the finance department are 30 and a half. And we're organized in those 4 divisions that I mentioned. The accounting division is the largest of the 4. We have 15 people in the accounting division. And accounting is responsible for monthly financial reports, for annual comprehensive financial reporting, managing all of our banking services, the approximately $1 million that come in and out daily through our 7 different bank accounts. Accounting also issues paychecks for our over 1,100 employees every 2 weeks. Second division, by size, second largest division, is the sales tax division. And that division is responsible for essentially protecting our tax base and making sure that our over 13,000 licensed businesses are educated and aware of our tax policies. And the sales tax division also brings in, processes, and reports all of the sales and use tax payments. The administration division is its smallest of the 4 divisions, and within that group, we manage our investment portfolio. We have a pretty healthy investment portfolio, about $360 million. We also manage our debt portfolio, and we administer our purchasing card program for the city. The procurement division is responsible for managing all of our contracts, purchases of goods and services, as well as facilitating solicitations, requests for proposals, and all competitive procurements. So I wanted to keep this very simple, and as you can see in the graphic there, our theme for 2026 in the finance department is simplicity and efficiency. So with that in mind, our top 3 initiatives that have the widest impact on the organization are: 1, to complete our enterprise resource planning needs analysis. We have a 25-year-old enterprise resource planning system, and we are in the middle of hiring a consultant to come in and help us with that analysis. And the deliverable for that initiative is to produce a comprehensive request for proposal that will be rolled out so that we can then go to work on choosing the right system for us. Our second initiative is to complete the 3H 2025 implementation for a standalone fund for those taxes that come in. And the deliverable there will be to provide an efficient, easily accessible method to account for and report the paramedic and pavement funds. So we have done the initial work. We've stood up the fund. We have the accounts. We're receiving the money currently. But separate funds do require a lot of work. There's unique requirements in this fund because we will have to keep those monies separate, and we have a separate set of books, a separate set of accounts, and we really are keeping a close eye tracking all of the money coming in from that ballot initiative. And the third initiative here that we have, our third priority, is to increase paperless sales and use tax filings, payments, and communications. So this will be a big benefit to our business community. Those over 13,000 businesses, they'll be able to go online. They can look at the status of their account. They could read all of the communications that we have with them, and we really want to promote that method of communication and facilitate that tax filing and payment through our online system. And the goal there, the deliverable, is to have 95% of those items coming through our online system. So in this slide, we just kind of like to go over some of our benefits and some of our risks that we have that we'll be facing. And you know, the big thing that I like to point out here is that we do have a very high performing finance department. We've achieved the National Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting for 42 consecutive years. So this is an award that is issued by the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada. That is a very large organization consisting of over 30,000 members, and slightly over 300 members achieve this Certificate of Excellence on an annual basis, and we've achieved this for 42 years straight, and we're looking forward to making that 43 here soon. This is our ACFR, our Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, and this is what we put all of that hard work into, producing this report and then submitting it for the Certificate of Excellence. Now, one of the risks that I'm very aware of, and I like to point out, is that within our finance department, over the course of the last 2 years, we've had about a 40% changeover in positions. So that includes folks that are brand new to the organization and folks that are new to the position that they're currently in. 40% of those folks, again, have changed over. That includes 2 division managers. We have a new accounting manager. Our previous accounting manager retired after 20 years in that role. We have a new sales tax manager. He was promoted to that position about 4 months ago. And I'm also still in my first year. I'm here in my 10th month. So we do have a lot of change in the department, and we have a very high-performing, again, very dedicated team, but we are also facing a pretty steep learning curve. And one of my things is I really encourage training, keeping up to date on skills, having a healthy training budget for our finance department. And especially with the second item that I have there as a potential risk is technology. Technology is changing so quickly, especially with AI. I think of it as when we went from 10-key adding machines to Excel spreadsheets, and I think we're in the middle of that change right now. I'm focusing really hard on staying on top of that and also helping my team stay on top of that. So the way that we are supporting the strategic plan are these 2 major priorities. Stewardship and fiscal responsibility is the big one, the most obvious one there. And the second one is supporting economic vitality, and that is through our work with taxpayers and the business community. That is all I have for you all.
All right, council questions? Councilor Island?
I know that technology is increasing. That's why I'm thinking, are we going to be able to keep all these people? Because our city is actually decreasing in population. So I have a problem with government getting bigger, because that's what costs so much. Because, 65% of our budget is employees. And now you're asking for another person because we got this tax increase. I would think some of this AI would eliminate some positions.
Councilor Ireland, great question. And my feedback on that is that the new tax has created quite a bit of work. As I mentioned, we had to create a new fund, a new set of books, tracking different transactions. We're hiring over 40 new firefighter personnel. Not firefighter, but fire staff, and that is a big impact on our payroll function. So we do need that position in order to facilitate that. But you are correct in terms of AI really amplifying our ability to get more done with less. We have been shrinking as a department in finance. We've pared down several positions. We've repurposed at least 3 positions that I can remember right now. And I'm completely in line with your thinking that if we are utilizing AI, we'll be able to do more with less because we won't be able to hire more people. And there are going to be more demands in terms of reporting, transparency, and harnessing this tool will help us.
So you're asking for one more employee than we had last year?
Councilor Island, that is correct. We do have another employee, but that employee has already been budgeted for. That was part of the tax that was approved. So that position has already been accounted for.
Do you know how much this person's going to be making?
I don't know off of the top of my head.
Know. Thank you.
We'll get that to you, yes.
Thank you. Councilor Azadi?
Thank you for your presentation. I actually don't agree with the strategy of, not saying you, but from what I just heard, AI is not, the goal of AI is not to eliminate staff. It's to reorient and help staff work on more strategic items, right? So it takes away those tedious items. So if any staff members are listening, that is not our goal, to get rid of you with technology. That is definitely not the goal. But what I wanted to say is on the RFP for the ERP, will the 2027 budget include a cost estimate of what you'll be requesting for the ERP that we'll see in August?
Councilor Azadi, yes, we will have that in the budget. You'll be able to see that.
Councilor Barajas?
Would you mind going back to the risk factors or that one right there? Thanks. Actually, I think I meant the one before it. Yeah. So I think something that would be helpful, in terms of a comprehensive ask for this new position for the 3H, if there's just some sort of institutionalized lessons learned, something that, like, with this new position, as it kind of takes on this new fund, is there, particularly in terms of the transparency and tracking how the fund is used, what money is coming in, how it's going out, if there's a lot of best practices that are specific to Westminster that we can then translate to other departments. And I'm not saying let's add more people for these things, but maybe something that is just shareable, across departments. I think that's something that could also justify kind of that added role. I know that, we do a great job with our transparency portal, but if this is maybe a moment for collaboration and kind of sharing of best practices, I think that would be a great opportunity. I'm also really grateful for kind of that risk management aspect. I know that the accounting department is the big chunk of what you all do, and I think that as a city, it behooves us to ensure that we have real solid personnel people behind that kind of risk management and things, so that way things don't fall through the cracks and what we're learning 20 years later that we've been wasting money that no one has ever caught. I think that's really, it speaks to the fiduciary responsibility that we have as a city and as council to ensure that work happens. So thank you.
Yeah. Councilor, no, all good. Okay. Councilor Hott, did you have anything?
No, just thank you so much for your presentation.
All right. Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
I'm good. Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for a beautiful presentation and for all the reading that we got. It was fantastic, though. Appreciate it. Okay, that brings us to our next presentation for proposed amendments to the municipal code.
Oh, Mayor, we have one more information
Oh,
technology.
I missed this. I apologize.
Yeah, 3C.
Going back, welcome, Director Go. We have a presentation now for information technology.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, councilors, those that are watching on the stream. I'm David Guo, Chief Information Officer here with the City of Westminster. The topic for the presentation this evening is on our Information Technology Department's 2026 priorities, something I'm very excited about. Looking at the org chart, the Information Technology Department is positioned within Deputy City Manager Larry Dorr scope, and our department as a whole, just for background information, we're the technology consultant and implementer to software and hardware that enable our workforce to be efficient and effective. I like to call us the technology bringers. We bring the technology, and the champions for making work better through tech. So back in 2024, we updated our brand, our motto to hashtag #TechYes, and our slogan is do the right things and do things right. So the Information Technology Department, we support every single 1,100 city employees by providing the best-in-class computing equipment and software, including our police officers, our firefighters, utility plant operators, park and rec staff, and everyone in between. So the department is comprised of 3 major divisions: IT operations, enterprise solutions, network, and security. So at the time of this presentation, we're authorized at 42 full-time employees with the operating budget of $14.6 million and a capital project of $2.6 million. So within the IT operations is comprised mostly of data center operations, infrastructure, help desk. Within the Enterprise Solutions Division, mostly it's comprised of applications, commercial off-the-shelf applications, or SaaS applications. Network and security, as the name denotes, mainly manage the network and the cybersecurity component of our craft. So in the 2026 priorities, mainly broke down by 3 major themes that we want to focus on this year as connectivity, cloud computing, and critical infrastructure. So in the inventory of programs and projects we're undertaking this year, our goal really is to consistently and predictably delivering dependable technology and good customer experience. So everything that you're looking at on that list, from rebuilding our VPN or private virtual private network, to having better Wi-Fi at the fire stations, to migrating applications to the cloud, to upgrading the 911 dispatch system. We aim to create a good balance among technology, security, and user experience. There are many factors influencing our progress. Most notably is the overwhelming support and trust that the city leadership has given us year after year. IT staff feel the empowerment when we propose new technology portfolios, and the support when we pivot vacancies as they come up to meet the needs of our city today. So together as the IT organization, we have received the Digital City Awards 22 years in a row. Of course, among other things, on the macro economy, tariff and technology demands and costs continue to be a factor in our business, as well as the artificial intelligence uprising that our Chief Financial Officer mentioned earlier. So as a result, the Information Technology Department is in alignment with Council's strategic priorities by being hyper-focused on resilient technology tools, critical infrastructure security, dependable connectivity, and meaningful community engagement. With that, that's our smiley faces. I'm here to answer any questions that you have.
I have the same question to you as I had for our last presentation. The one extra person is for the fire and how much are they making, and is AI going to get rid of some positions?
Councilor Ireland, I was hoping you would ask that question. That's a good
I
question.
don't think you were hoping, but.
That's a great question because artificial intelligence is just on the upcoming of development in our globe. So personally, I think that just like emails, right? When we first got email, everyone thought that, oh my gosh, it's gonna make my life so much easier. It's gonna work for me. But now we just all ended up working more, right? So I don't think we fully understand the impact of AI on our daily lives just yet. Because if you think about where we are right now with AI, is a very infant in the progress. It's mostly just generative in text. Think about in your personal life, which aspect of your life has AI been able to help you eliminate? I think most often than not, when you ask AI the question, you have to double check the response, so that creates more work for you. So I also think that at local government, our craft is about people. It's about services. So it's very different than, say, if we're a development shop writing software. Just last week, the credit card processing company Square, they eliminated 4,000 employees. But that, if you look at a component of the jobs, those mostly are programmers and coders. AI is very good at generating code, but it's not good at providing water or auditing taxes or paving the roads, right? So I think we don't really understand that just yet, but time will tell.
Well, great answer. Thank you.
Welcome.
Councilor Barajas?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you for the presentation. I'm curious, kind of in this conversation around AI, the safeguards that are in place for municipal use of AI with sensitive or private resident data. Mm-hmm. So I think that there's just maybe some desire for the city to attend to that privacy concern, if there's sensitive resident data that's kind of classified, I don't know what the right terminology would be there, but kind of private for the city to know. What sort of safeguards are in place when for city staff, maybe collating all that using an AI tool to ensure that that data stays within the city and not kind of for use with the AI providers, kind of data banks, it doesn't just get farmed out for I think that's like a major concern people might have with AI. And then also just a kind of different question, but if there are, I mentioned it in the strategic plan because you mentioned it in my onboarding, but continued work around safeguards for ransomware attacks and other potential threats to our information technology systems, particularly for city operations, but I'd say kind of citywide.
Yeah, important comment, Councilor Barajas. I'll answer your question in two parts. First is how do we safeguard the public data under our stewardship? So as a city, we recently established an AI steering committee that's composed of stakeholders from city attorney's office and all the other departments. So together, the steering committee formulated a new AI policy that is now circulating around the city leadership to get approved and enacted. So through that effort, we have formally adopted Copilot as our official AI tool. And the beauty of adopting Copilot through Microsoft is that our Microsoft tenant, which is just another word for our Microsoft licensing, is strictly within the GCC tenant. GCC stands for Government Community Cloud, which is completely air-gapped from commercial cloud. So under GCC is a higher tier of expectation and standards and security measures that Microsoft had to stand by. So we pay our government licensing through that. So that in itself safeguards the data that we input into it. We also have performed 2 AI trainings across the city, one for AI champions, which we had about, I want to say 20 plus super users who want to be AI champions within each department. And we utilize a train-the-trainer model so that we train them and they go back to their departments and help train their fellow colleagues. And then we also conducted a citywide AI sort of champion class I think it was a couple of weeks ago at the rec center. So that's going to be ongoing monthly because we want to spread the word and enable and empower our users to do that. And then the second part of your question was cybersecurity, right? Cybersecurity is much more advanced when it comes to AI adoption. A lot of our endpoint detection, the appliances that we use in our firewalls, the different appliances that we have in the DMZ on our servers have long been utilizing resilient methodologies and detection and mitigation. So that we have been using that for several years now, and if that fails, we have a 24/7 SOC, Security Operating Center, that monitors our environment and mitigate any potential breaches or anomalies.
And sorry, one more follow-up question. Just when was the, I guess, do we have a continual audit on the physical infrastructure of that SOC, the security, the thing that you mentioned, the 24?
Yeah, so that is a third-party service that we procure. I think we also, so I don't want to share who it is, but it's a third-party service that we do have. And then as far as I think you're talking about auditing, we are doing a penetration testing on our environment this year. That's on the list that I had here. So our CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, is heading that up because we want to check our own blind spots and make sure we know the things that we don't know.
Awesome. I appreciate you sharing that with us and the residents listening. Thank you.
Of course.
Folks online, Councilor Hott, any questions?
No, thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
No, because you guys all had such great questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the elegant answer that you had. Yeah.
And
you're welcome.
I'll just say, I have a few questions. Are we on E3 or E5? Just out of curiosity.
We're on E3 with other SKUs attached to it.
Okay. I just wanted to say that is an impressive and also ambitious list of things we're doing. We're doing everything from cybersecurity to pen testing to standing up new networks. And so I'm excited, but also I would assume this is a couple year out plan, right?
No, this is this year.
This is this year.
Yes. We're trying to put 42 people to work.
My goodness. I wish you all the luck. And then it sounds like we're also standing up a new ERP. Well, this year we're just doing the RFP for that, it sounds like, for the finance department.
Yes, Mayor. So this year we're looking for the consultant to help us study the business process, the scope, and the requirements.
Right. So I hope that all hands are free when that begins next year. Okay, I'm just kidding. All right, well, thank you so much, and I'm impressed as always with you and your team, so thank you very much. Appreciate everything you're doing.
Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. That moves us to our next discussion, which is item 3D. Proposed amendments to the Westminster Municipal Code related to campaign finance complaints, street solicitation, sound truck regulations, and massage establishment regulations. Quite a miscellaneous list. It's all.
Melting pot of lists.
Welcome.
It is. Thank you, Mayor. And my pleasure to introduce Matthew Munch. Matt is an assistant city attorney working in my office. And also with us tonight is Jenna Roth, who's our police legal advisor, who supports the police and fire departments and with regard to public safety matters on a daily basis. Mr. Munch works very closely with the clerk's office on election and open records issues, in addition to working on tax issues with our finance department. So tonight, these three ordinances have been in the works for some time, and we would like to present our drafts to City Council and get feedback and some direction as to whether or not to bring them forward for first reading on a future agenda. Some of the matters are a bit time-consuming, and with regard to particularly the Fair Campaign Practices Act update, and I'll let Mr. Munch explain the proposal. So, Matt?
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I suppose we'll start with the campaign finance update. Yes, we do have quite the motley crew of updates here. This sort of came to a fore because something new happened in this last election cycle. We had more campaign finance at the municipal level used to be a fairly quiet affair, or at least it was so far in my practice. We had more campaign finance complaints filed with the city clerk's office in this last campaign cycle than we have in the entire 8 years I've been working for the city combined. That pointed out a couple of things. Something we noticed was that what the city did in its code up until now is adopted the Fair Campaign Practices Act, all relevant portions of it. But that wasn't quite specific enough, and there was an understandable amount of confusion among both candidates and candidate committees and people who were filing complaints as to what the specific procedures were to be in terms of how those campaign finance complaints were going to be reviewed. What is the deadline for filing this form? Who is it who's going to be sitting to hear this and review this? What are the possible penalties at the end? Now, all of this is, of course, set out in detail in the Fair Campaign Practices Act, but the Fair Campaign Practices Act uses different terminology and different titles, and the confusion was really quite understandable. On top of that, there was confusion and disagreement between the city. Once we ended up with a couple of complaints where there was a conflict of interest or a potential conflict of interest with the city clerk's office to review that complaint, there was confusion with the state as to whether or not and under what circumstances we could refer that up to the state for them to take over that review as a conflict of interest. So what we're trying to do with this is essentially make explicit the procedures that we have been using for years, which is in adopting the Fair Campaign Practices Act and its procedures for who does what review under what circumstances and exactly what happens, exactly what complaints can be referred to the Secretary of State, what authorizations do they have. We are making explicit what was rather vague before. Now, what we are recommending with this draft is something that I would argue is a efficient solution to the problem, which is we essentially tie our procedure to the Fair Campaign Practices Act and say that unless the City Council passes an ordinance saying otherwise, of course, the City Council can modify those procedures in the Fair Campaign Practices Act any way they see fit, but we will simply mirror whatever the state does. This gives us a couple of benefits. First, we know that we are going to be insulated from any conflict with the state if we do that. The Secretary of State's office is not going to have any problem with any of the procedures we use in municipal campaign finance complaints if we use their procedures, essentially. The second is that it's going to automatically update. We will be using the best practices that the state can come up with as they happen. We will not need to modify anything unless the City Council has a problem with a change to the Fair Campaign Practices Act, in which case City Council can simply make the change to what you would rather see happen. That's why I've recommended doing it the way that we have in this draft, which is essentially tying our procedures and saying we are using those procedures. This person shall stand in place of, we're just exchanging titles, and then making a few modifications just to make it plausible for the way that our city is arranged. I think that provides clarity. There shouldn't be any more confusion, among complainants or candidates as to what to expect when a Fair Campaign Practices Act complaint is processed. Whereas, as I said, there was a certain amount of understandable confusion before because the exact procedures were a little bit vague. In terms of the timeliness of this, we are recommending rather quick action on this for one specific reason. Because we had so many Fair Campaign Practices Act complaints in this last cycle, we have no reason to believe that we will have fewer in the next cycle. It's not hard for one of those complaints to present a conflict or the appearance of a conflict for the city clerk's office who is reviewing that complaint. We want to make sure that we can refer any complaint that represents a conflict of interest for the clerk up to the Secretary of State, if for no other reason than just to make sure that we avoid the appearance of any impropriety or any bias. But the Secretary of State needs that to happen 180 days before the next election, which is why, which of course is going to be coming up quicker than we think. For that reason, we are recommending fairly swift action on this ordinance, or at the very least, on that portion of the ordinance that talks about referral of conflicting complaints. And with that, I'm very happy to take any questions on this recommendation.
Thank you.
How are we dealing with the complaints from the last election?
The complaints from the last election were handled using the same procedure. We used the procedures set forth in the Fair Campaign Practices Act as best as they could be grafted onto the city staff. And that is also what we've done with the very few Fair Campaign Practices Act complaints that we had received in previous years. The issue is there were people, complainants and candidates, I believe, and complainants and candidates who didn't necessarily like those procedures and may had differing opinions even amongst themselves as to what procedures should be used instead. Some of those ideas simply couldn't be done, would have violated the law, but there were all sorts of different opinions as to what the specific procedures were going to be. This will not represent a change from what we were doing. We've always been utilizing the procedures of the Fair Campaign Practices Act. We're trying to be more explicit about it so that everybody knows. It's clearer to everybody going in when they file a complaint how it's going to be handled.
So all our campaign finance the same as the state?
In terms of the Fair Campaign Practices Act, it's not that all of the finances are the same, but the Fair Campaign Practices Act has specific procedure or specific campaign finance requirements for municipal elections and municipal candidates. And what we are talking about, now those are incorporated, there's no problem there. I don't believe there was any confusion there as to what candidates did or did not need to do. That was, I think, fairly explicitly adopted. It's the procedures for reviewing the complaints that we believe we need to be more specific about, and where there definitely was confusion in the last election. And we're trying to hope to avoid that same confusion in the future elections.
So is the state fine with taking this on?
The state is fine with taking this on, and we know in terms of the conflicting, us being able to refer conflict or interest, they are, because we can only do this pursuant to a state statute that was passed last 2 years? 2 years ago, in which they specifically provide that municipalities can refer municipal campaign finance complaints to the Secretary of State so long as certain criteria are met in the authorizing ordinance. And that's why you can see that when the part of this ordinance that talks about referring complaints to the Secretary of State is rather wordy. That's because we have gone through, because like I said, we had some confusion with the Secretary of State this year about whether we could or could not do this. We are leaving no room for doubt. We have copied and pasted word for word the exact requirements that they say they need in order to refer conflicting campaign finance complaints up to them. So yes, the state is willing to take this on because they passed a statute to that effect.
I just want to know if they've listened. Like when people send them, does the state listen? Or do they hear anything? Or is it just go, nothing happens?
That I can't say that I know for certain, ma'am, but I do know that they have written in law procedures for what they are supposed to do once they receive these complaints. It's a fairly new law, and in the research I've done, I have not found that many other cities that took advantage of this opportunity to have that safeguard for conflict of interest. I know that Thornton has, but very few other, if any, cities comparable to the city in sort of size and demographics to Westminster have taken advantage of that. Nonetheless, I very much recommend that we should. It's just such a help to the city clerk's office to just avoid any sort of appearance or accusation of impropriety. Our city clerk's office has enough problems. So if there's any sort of issue or accusation, we want to get it to someone where both the complainant, the candidate, and the city clerk will all be comfortable having a neutral arbiter.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, folks online?
No, thank you for the presentation, and I am in support of the recommendation.
Thank you.
Same here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone have anything to say that's not in support? Okay. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Yes, ma'am.
The second of our three ordinances that Mr. Munch is prepared to speak on this evening, I'll give a brief overview, and maybe there won't be too many questions. We'll see. But there is a proposal before you, the second ordinance, which would repeal the city's solicitation ordinance and also modify the existent sound truck operations ordinance. First, the solicitation ordinance has not been enforced in many years. We have trained our officers to that effect, and we would recommend the repeal of the solicitation ordinance. It shouldn't still, well, it's still on the books. The recommendation is to take it off of the books because I think it's fair to say it does not survive most recent court decisions in this area, and we would recommend it be deleted. The sound truck ordinance immediately follows the solicitation ordinance, and the sound truck ordinance addresses the regulation of amplified sound coming off of vehicles. And I don't know that we've had a lot of sound trucks in our city in recent years, but we would recommend updating the ordinance. Right now, it's out of date, and it does include, I believe, some content-based restrictions, which we would recommend be removed pursuant to the First Amendment. We don't want to regulate anything that is content-based, but I think that we would recommend keeping the sound truck ordinance on the books to mitigate any potential, I think, impacts that sound trucks or amplified sound coming off of vehicles might have in our community. So to the extent you have questions on that update, I'm happy to assist as Mr. Munch.
Councilor Zadi?
The sound truck ordinance, what is it exactly? Is it banning all amplified sound from trucks? So what is the actual?
I'm not surprised this is not something everybody is familiar with. It's a bit of it, when you read the ordinance, it's a bit of an old-timey thing that I don't think we see very often. I think the idea is essentially a truck driving around with a loudspeaker, either advertising something or campaigning for a candidate. Think of Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? There's a sound truck in that. And if you read some of the stuff in the ordinance, you can tell that this ordinance...
Just sell my sound trucks? I don't know. I shouldn't have them anymore. The next campaign.
You just have to make sure you only operate between the hours of 10 and 7. You can see, if you read the ordinance as it was, that it might well have been written in those days. We're talking about lewd and vulgar and profane or indecent speech. I thought there was a reference to it's just old and impractical, and it's not
just content, or is it saying you can't have the sound, the amplified sound?
It's very specifically not content based. People still can have sound trucks. We do regulate the hours they can operate, the speed at which they can operate. Let's see what else.
Volume? Does it have like a volume? A decibel level?
We sort of, in an indirect way. If you look at the proposed subsection 3, it says sound shall not be amplified within 100 yards of a hospital or within 500 feet of a school. So it's we try to get that sound regulation by distance rather than decibels. I believe we don't do our noise ordinances by decibel level in the city, and I would recommend against it because it's a tough way to enforce sound. So instead we limit it to sort of reasonable daylight hours when most people aren't sleeping, keeping away from schools, that sort of thing.
I would just add to that, not to interrupt, but with regard to the volume, Section 5 does provide that the volume of sound shall be controlled so that it will not be audible more than 100 yards from the sound truck.
So if a truck,
distance.
If a truck has, if there's a truck that doesn't have the amplified equipment on it, but has just really loud volume from its native speakers, because one of the issues that we have is there are a lot of cars that drive around late night blasting all sorts of sound, and it wakes people up. So is this related to any sound from any vehicle or specifically trucks and specifically with the equipment?
So the definition, which is that horse reference I was thinking of, which we left in, shall mean any vehicle, including any horse-drawn vehicle, having mounted thereon or attached thereto any sound amplifying equipment. Now that is a little bit vague. You know, who knows? We might still have someone try to take a horse buggy around. So we leave that in there. Whether it would apply to any specific vehicle would have to be an enforcement question. Generally speaking, the sound trucks that we, I don't think this has ever actually come across my desk since I've been here. We did have one person inquire about it probably 6 years ago. I think of an ice cream truck, something like that might qualify. I don't know if a vehicle that just had very loud music would necessarily meet this definition, but there are other ways probably in the model traffic code that would be a better way to handle that rather than trying to apply the sound truck ordinance to them. The sound truck is really intended to deal with something rather intentional someone is trying to do that used to be fairly common, I get the impression, back in the 1930s. You know, we're modifying it here, of course, because these two things that seem entirely unrelated are contained in the same chapter. And it seemed like it can be, if we were going to be modifying one, it seemed a convenient time to update the other.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilor Barajas?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. So this is a question on one of the, I don't know how to read legal, or how to note legal documents, but, you know, subsection 8, I think, or 8, 9, it shall be unlawful for any sound truck to make a U-turn in any block. I'm curious why that wasn't struck.
I didn't see any particular need to strike it. It was there. I tried to get, without specific guidance to the contrary, I tried to get rid of things in this ordinance that just didn't make a lot of sense in the modern world.
Okay. Does that make sense? I guess my question better would be just why does that make sense? Yeah.
I don't know. I simply didn't have any reason to get rid of it.
Okay.
Certainly if City Council, I can't think of any. I suppose I could come up with a hypothetical that someone operating a sound truck maybe is paying less attention because of the jingling music than another person, or perhaps you don't want, perhaps you want to make it harder for the sound truck to just loop around a street. I don't know if any of these are good reasons, and certainly if City Council wants to strike that provision, we could. I simply didn't delete it because I had no reason to.
Okay. No, I mean, I was more just curious because everything seems so, like you went through such a great job in such fine detail. I was curious if there was a glaring reason why, other than that. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Councilor Eiler?
You talked about the solicitation. Is that like people coming to your door?
So
no solicitation?
In this case, no, ma'am. In this case, that was specifically dealing with solicitation on or near streets and highways. Now, one of the reasons, there's essentially two reasons why that we needed to modify this. The first is, as we said, this is largely unenforceable given the current state of the law and hasn't been enforced for quite some time. But also, you may recall, we've essentially dealt with the underlying problem, which is we separately have a median safety ordinance, which focuses instead of focusing on the problem with the solicitation is that it does involve speech of some sort. It's regulating the conduct of someone talking to someone else. The median safety ordinance is talking about people standing in places, doing things where they're not supposed to stand and running the risk of getting hit by a car or a motorcycle, putting themselves and other people at risk. With the median safety ordinance, we did quite a bit of research to make sure that everything was backed up with data, and it is solid to withstand constitutional scrutiny and keep people safe and keep people off of medians and roadsides where they are not safe. So in addition to being unenforceable and unenforced, the solicitation ordinance is redundant because we have something better to deal with the underlying problem, which is we don't want people getting hit with cars on the medians. So the section that we are recommending deleting is talking about solicitation at or near highways, not solicitation door to door.
Okay.
Other questions? I guess Michael.
I just have to
go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say I appreciate the learning opportunity because I had to look up what the heck a sound truck was, but otherwise I do not have any changes. Yeah, thank you.
I do have a question, which is why not strike the sound truck ordinance entirely?
Once again, because, well, I suppose because I can imagine it coming up. The same way that, like I said, we didn't really have campaign finance complaints until this year. I can easily imagine somebody or group of somebody's deciding they want to operate these in the city of Westminster. And if we don't have anything in place, because we know that they have done so in the past because this ordinance exists, and we wouldn't want to leave a gap for someone to drive a very loud truck through at 2 in the morning, right across the street from where everybody's sleeping. That's would be my argument for keeping it. Is we haven't seen one of these, or at least it hasn't come across my desk in a very long time. But someone could decide to do it tomorrow, and we want to both leave an avenue for them to do that lawfully, but also make it so they don't do it disruptive to others.
Thank you. Okay. Thanks all.
Okay, the final of the 3 ordinances that Mr. Munch is prepared to describe for you is an update to the code with regard to the regulation of massage parlors. And this would be to bring our local code in line with state law. Last year, the state law changed with regard to background checks, and we would recommend that our code be updated to include the same background check provisions that are in the state law. So if that's acceptable to City Council, please let us know.
There are a couple of other very minor changes, such as the cap on the maximum fines. That's also to bring us in line with state law, a few small things like that. There's one other change in here that we made, which was to change the licensing procedure. That as of right now, the Special Permits and Licensing Board will review the license applications and make a recommendation to the City Council for approval or denial. We changed that to try to ease the process a little bit, try to make it a little bit easier on our legitimate businesses, that the Special Permits and Licensing Board will make the decision as to whether to issue the license or not. That decision is appealable to the City Council, so they still have the right to have the decision made by their elected officials. And also, the City Council itself can vote to review that decision of the Special Permits and Licensing Board on its own. So anything the City Council would want to review, you still can. Anybody who wants it to be reviewed by the City Council can, but in most circumstances, it would be a way for legitimate businesses to get their license quicker, easier, and cheaper. We also eliminated, there used to be requirements for needs of the neighborhood and surveying and that sort of thing, the sort of thing that you see in liquor license application. I believe I'm correct in saying the city clerk found those onerous and superfluous. The business applicants found that quite onerous and expensive, and I don't believe the police department thought they were helpful either. So it is a way to, this ordinance, all in all, I would argue, is a way to put an obstacle in the road of an illegitimate business that is engaged in things that are exploitative and dangerous, while simultaneously clearing the road for legitimate, well-run businesses.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilor Johnson?
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for this. The question I had is around the call-up and the appeal provisions, because correct me if I'm wrong, but then that would make it unique as compared to some of the other SPLB provisions. Is that correct? Because I don't think can we review liquor licenses in that same manner?
Not liquor licenses, but I did pull this, I did not make this appeal provision up off the top of my head. This was taken from the review process for some of our zoning applications. So this is a procedure that is used elsewhere. I rather just assumed that the City Council might want to have that discretion. I know that there are any number of other business license and liquor license things that the Special Permits Licensing Board just does. I apologize, I'm not clear off the top of my head whether there's an appeal process to the City Council or not in those. But we thought the City Council might want to have that discretion. You might never use it.
Any other questions?
I just have sorry.
Go ahead.
Can I go? I just have a clarification. Massage parlor, is that like does it include, the retail stores like Massage Envy or this, as an example? Is it inclusive of those or?
So the definition of massage parlor says it shall mean any parlor providing massage, but does not include training rooms of public and private schools accredited by the State Board of Education or approved by the division charged with responsibility for approving private occupational schools. Yes, it does appear that that would include those sorts of businesses. I would say that portion of the definition has not been modified, except that at the end we removed something that talks about a facility operated for the purpose of training masseuses. So none of this should really change the status quo other than the background check requirements.
Okay, and so it'll be that all of our existing retail outlets like that would need to be able to get licensed?
Well, this will not make, these changes will not make any change as to who needs to get licensed and who doesn't. Everyone who would need to get licensed after this recommended change has to get a license right now. We're not making any changes as to who this applies to. So there won't be anybody who will be surprised or imposed upon by this, except for a business that might be operating when they shouldn't be or operating in a manner that they shouldn't be. This won't change the applicability.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilor Barajas?
I'm just curious kind of about process with the SPLB. Will they get an update then, like when these sorts of things happen where we adjust code, obviously once we vote on this, but when we adjust the code, do they get any sort of education as SPLB? I guess that maybe. Yes.
Well, I know that we have trainings for those board members all the time. We have staff liaisons who I imagine would also keep them informed on changes of this nature. And also they tend to be involved citizens who are paying attention. I wouldn't be surprised if they're all watching right now.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, great.
So do we have any rec centers that have massage? Because they do in Broomfield, and there's been occasions that they were not appropriate things they did. So I'm wondering if they have to have background checks, everyone that works in our rec centers.
Well, what I can say is, as I said before, this isn't going to change who the massage. People needed licenses before this change as well, and we haven't made any changes as to who does and does not need to get a license.
I'm just asking if they have to have a background check.
Oh, if they have to have a massage, if they have to have a license from the city, then after this change, they will have to have a background check. Now, again, that's per state law. We're bringing ourselves in line with state law on that.
That's good.
And we do expect that to be helpful, at least in the police department's ongoing efforts to stop some really bad exploitative practices that they've done some good work in intervening in lately.
Great, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilor Hott, did you have anything?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. We appreciate the guidance. We'll bring forward the 3 ordinances on an upcoming agenda for first reading then.
Thank you. Do we want to call for a 5-minute break before our next one? Okay, yes, I'm seeing lots of head nods. So 5 minutes, and we'll be back here at 8:40.
It does, especially dealing with us.
All right, we are now back, and we will go over the proposed amendments to the Westminster Municipal Code related to municipal ordinance violations.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, we have in the agenda packet for council's review and feedback, a series of, I believe, 9 ordinances that would update the municipal code so that it reflects compliance with the People versus Camp decision from the Colorado Supreme Court, which was issued in December of 2025. The decision of the court was that municipal offenses that are identical to state offenses should follow the state penalty provisions and not exceed them. So our presiding judge, who's also in attendance this evening, Judge Lontine, issued a standing order immediately after the court's decision, providing that no sentence for an identical offense would exceed the state maximum. So I think it's fair to say that's in effect immediately. What these ordinance updates would do would be put those changes into the code. And the first of the 9 is the one that addresses the penalty provisions. And what we would propose would be to add the provisions at the end of the first paragraph of that ordinance, which call out that identical offenses essentially are subject to the maximum sentence that does not exceed state statute. So it would set the state penalty as the range for consideration if a person were convicted of an identical offense under the municipal code. First, I'll thank Mr. Hoff. Mark Hoff is here, as is Brian Fuselier. Mr. Fuselier is our lead prosecutor, and Mr. Hoff is an assistant city attorney who has been very helpful in helping draft code updates and work closely with Mr. Fuselier, who I appreciate took the lead on beginning these updates and the process of evaluating which sections should be the subject to updates. And what is before you tonight is really just the beginning. And the penalty provision, I guess, is the threshold question for City Council tonight. If Council is amenable to an update to the penalty provision, then the next question would be how should updates to the individual charges in the municipal code be handled? And we have drafts of the first 8 in the agenda packet for you this evening. And the approach that we are proposing is to align the municipal charges with the state statute. And so to the extent that we have municipal offenses that are identical to state offenses, we would recommend that the code language reflect that. So we would update the code and also call out the penalty in each one that would not exceed the state penalty to make it transparent and to provide notice to anyone who looks to the code to inform them as to what penalty would be associated with a specific charge. And as you look through the materials, you may have noticed that among our changes, we have in our code not always use the same titles as the state uses in its. So among the changes are to our assault charge, which the state calls menacing, and our battery charge, which the state labels as assault. So to eliminate confusion, we are proposing that we align the titles of the offenses with the titles as they appear in state law. And we've had an opportunity to confer with Councilor Johnson, who had several questions. And to the extent that you've noticed, the final of these 8, well, second to final, is something of an oddity, and it is the obstruction of telephone or telegraph service. This is a charge that is from state law that is currently in our municipal code, which is often, I understand, brought up in a domestic violence context where an abuser may attempt to limit their victim and their ability to call for help by taking away their phone. So we currently have on the code, in our municipal code, a charge at 6213 called obstruction of the seeking of emergency assistance. The proposal here would be just to rename that and align it with the state language. So it's not intended to expand the regulations that are in the municipal code. It is intended to align them with the state statutes as they reflect these charges. The updates to the code are not intended to present any policy changes to the city. So these are all offenses that are currently on the books in the city, and we have identified these specific charges because the elements that they include are the same elements as appear in the state statutes. And so that's sort of the threshold question here. Which charges are we looking to update? And we look at the elements. And I think the state statutes have a lot of extra language that may not be applicable to a municipal context. So it's a bit of a time-consuming drafting exercise to modify our individual offenses to align with the state statutes. But what's before you tonight are the first 8 of those. And speaking to Mr. Hoff, and I think Mr. Fuselier may be able to confirm, what we have in anticipation of would be dozens more in the future if this approach is the appropriate approach that council would support. We would propose to bring you these in batches as they are ready. It's a very time-consuming process, so we would ask for some level of patience. As you can see, tonight's 18 pages of ordinances. They were time-consuming to craft, and I'm afraid, as we go, it will take some more time to work our way through all of the criminal offenses and all of the offenses in our code that arguably have identical state counterparts that would need an update. I think that the reason I described the threshold question of the penalty provision is that there was a question raised as to whether the first 8 ordinances are yet ready for it being placed onto an agenda, or perhaps they should include some additional stakeholder input. And I would ask for some direction, because I think that our recommendation would be the penalty provision could be enacted with an edit, as discussed and proposed by Councilor Johnson, with regard to the stricken language in paragraph D that he suggests be reinstituted. I think, Mr. Hoff and I have discussed that language, which is currently in the code, could certainly remain in the code if that's council's preference. But our request would be for guidance as far as placing the penalty ordinance on an upcoming agenda and utilizing the drafts that we have to seek additional stakeholder input. Particularly, I understand there's some desire for alternate defense counsel to have an opportunity to review the code updates and to provide feedback on those, which is something we could support. And we just ask that, assuming we can incorporate or at least identify that feedback, the question we'd have is, would council be willing for staff, when we have a batch of ordinances that have incorporated or considered at least stakeholder input, whether we could agendize those for first reading, and we could have a more in-depth discussion at a first reading on a regular city council agenda, because I think that would be the more expeditious way of updating what will be dozens of different sections of the municipal code, and it will take some time. So those are my, I guess, two requests for council direction tonight. And to the extent that you have more questions as to the substance of the drafts, both Mr. Fuselier and Mr. Hoff are here, and they, I'm sure, can help answer any questions that you might have about the drafts. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we head into council questions and comments, I just want to offer, is there anything you wanted to add at this time, just based on the substance and discussions you've had?
There's only one other edit to, or change to section 181, the penalty section. The municipal court does not have imposed jail on juveniles, but it was still in the code that it was possible. But that's something that does not occur in any way, and so we just simply are asking to remove it from the code so it's clear that that's not a possibility.
Thank you.
And if I could add, I think I really appreciate Mr. Fuselier and Mr. Hoff incorporating input and seeking consult with not only our police department, but our court to, discuss the approach. What approach made the most sense? What approach would be able to be scaled to comprehensively update the code as is needed right now? So I appreciate, they're working in that manner, and I think that approach absolutely can be expanded to other stakeholders.
Thank you. I think before we go to council comments, I should offer Councilor Johnson a chance to speak. Do you want to offer your reasoning, especially on the language that you offered a different suggestion to?
Yeah, sure. I appreciate that, Madam Mayor. I can save some of the other comments around the rest of the code provisions in the adoption process, maybe for the second part of the conversation. But I agree with the city attorney's office and appreciate all the work that was done on 181. And I think it is critical that we adopt that and take our chief judge's directive and put it into our municipal code, because I think there's an element of criminal law that we all talk about that is notice to people and notice to defendants. And while the chief judge directive, I think, covers that for now, I think it is really important that we're timely in at least that provision adopting it now. And I support, the work that was done on the 181 change. I had really just a handful of maybe technical suggested changes that relate to wording that I can just pass along verbally right now, which is there is a line in 181A, about halfway through the section. We don't have line numbers, but it says any person convicted of a criminal violation of any section of this code shall, and there's these shalls and the nots, and I would actually prefer to reverse it, because I think it's more readable to say may not be imprisoned for a period, and then take away the double negatives, the not in that sentence, and then the not later as it relates to the jailing penalty and the fine penalty. That's the way the state statute that kind of governs this also reads, and it's also just more readable. And as someone who occasionally drafts laws, we try to make them more readable when we can, but I think that's purely technical. The other provision as it relates to D is, I think in terms of readability and understandability, and I've talked to the city attorney's office as it relates to how A and how D interact with each other, and I think this needs some further conversation. But in part of that interaction, I think I would have a strong preference to move subsection D to subsection B, so that it's parallel next to A in terms of that provision that says any section of the code for which there's no counterpart state criminal statute shall be a civil or infraction, and make that subsection B, and then reorder B and C. And then the reason I think that other operative section in D should remain is that this is really maybe a policy decision that this council can revisit in terms of, do we need to edit A or do we need to edit D? But I think in terms of the camp decision, my reading of our criminal statute is that there are confinements in our statute as it relates to what is a criminal offense and then what do we sentence and then what is a civil offense and how do we sentence. And I think by striking that line in subsection D, we're making a policy decision, or at least moving towards a policy decision that is unrelated to the camp decision, but that does have significant implications on how we regulate the rest of our code, especially the municipal-only offenses. And I would love to have that conversation. I think it's really important, but I think that is a much broader conversation than the immediate changes we need to make to be in compliance with camp. And so I would recommend just leaving that first part of that sentence in D in and revisiting the broader policy discussion as necessary as a council going forward.
I'm going to reply real quick. And what is the broader policy discussion exactly? Just for the benefit of all listening and this council and me.
Yeah, I appreciate that. The broader policy discussion is we have state level criminal offenses and we have the state corollaries to our municipal offenses, and those involve jail time. So if you commit a state criminal offense, you can be sentenced in state court and go to jail. You can be sentenced or prison, and you can be sentenced in our municipal court and face prison time. But then we have sentences that are municipal only, that relate to our regulatory powers as a municipality. And not that the city attorney's office has ever done this, but like your grass is too tall, right? Like all of our code ordinances and violations, our fire code ordinances and violations, there's no state equivalency to a violation of that. These are just special to our ordinances. And many municipalities, that is a civil only infraction. And so you cannot face jail time for that infraction. You can face fees and you can be held, in violation by a court, but you wouldn't face a jail sentence for a fire code violation or whatever. I think our code has provisions that imply that, but also to our conversation, maybe have provisions that don't. But in practice, by striking D, we move to the implication that we would allow jail time for municipal only offenses. And I think that is a significant policy discussion that we should have, but that's irrespective of the camp decision, which is only talking about what do we do with our state corollaries.
Thank you. That, I'll pause.
So when do you want to have that larger discussion?
I don't think it's urgent. I think in our sentencing practices, having talked to people in our court system, it's not, our immunity-only offenses aren't something that we're putting people in jail for regularly. I think it's probably post all the work that the city attorney's office does on compliance with camp. We can come back around and see what is 1A and hopefully the new B. How do we interplay and how do we, if we need to, reconcile them moving forward? But it's not like an urgent issue with the practices of the city attorney's office or the court system.
Other questions?
I'm trying to understand the juvenile part. So we don't jail juveniles?
So currently in our code allows for the possibility upon revocation of probation to sentence a juvenile to 2 days of incarceration. I've been here coming up on 9 years. We've never done it, not once that I'm aware of. There are also logistical issues if we were to want to do that. Where do we send this juvenile? Because it's not going to be, my understanding, it's not going to be the Adams County Jail or the Jefferson County Jail. They won't accept a juvenile with all these adults. So there's some practical limitations as well. But essentially, we have a provision in our code that says we can do it. I think those of us involved in these cases have all decided we're not going to attempt to for logistical reasons and reasons beyond that. So we're contemplating potentially removing it from the code.
What if they kill somebody? What do you do with them?
They go to district court. So, for example, if they commit a felony offense, they don't come to our municipal court.
And where do they jail them? Do they have a juvenile?
Presumably, well, I mean, the answer to that question could be complicated, but there's the Department of Youth Corrections, DYC, and some other facilities as well.
Okay, thank you for the answer.
Okay. Other questions before we move on to direction? Folks online, Councilor Hott, do you have other questions?
I don't have any questions.
Mayor Pro Tem Demella?
No, I don't either.
Okay. So we're looking direction for whether we can place this penalty ordinance on the agenda. And so I'm just going to pause there, and then we'll go to the next one. Councilor Azadi. Okay. Councilor Hott.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
I just want to clarify the penalty ordinance as with the suggested changes that were discussed here tonight.
I should have made that motion first. Is anyone against the suggested changes that Councilor Johnson made? Okay. I am for them as well, so I think we have a majority yes on both, so we're clear there. And then as far as this is the path going forward for how we do this, I have a question on that, which is, I mean, I would assume that your department would come up with another way if there was another way, but is there another way to, do we have to specifically list, is this the most practical way, is to specifically list every single crime and its subsequent punishment? Is there not just a guideline with a maximum minimum penalties that we can, instead of doing this tedious work?
Well, I think aligning the language in our code with the state language is desired because it would eliminate any ambiguity. What we don't want is a lot of uncertainty in court as to whether or not a specific charge is subject to the state range of penalties. The proposal that we are offering would call that out and answer that question for every charge for which there is a state corollary. So, and
if I might, Councilor Johnson referenced notice to citizens and defendants. We did contemplate trying to accomplish the same thing in different formats, but the reason we're suggesting doing it this way is we think it's the easiest to understand. So for example, if you're charged with a crime, it says on your summons the name of that charge and our code section. If you go to that code section, you will see the potential penalty for that code right there. You don't have to go back to 181. You might not know about 181. You might not know where to look. So we thought, though it's more work, it is going to be more clear, more easily understandable, and we'll do a better job of putting a non-lawyer on notice of and help them understand what the potential penalty for each charge might be.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Mayor, I'd also offer that the research required to compare the state offenses to the municipal offenses and all the elements that they contain is time consuming. And I think that the complexity of that is another issue we would like to address in terms of the uncertainty that would introduce for anyone who's charged through our code. Is that fair to say?
Yes, there are. So essentially, we're doing two updates because if we're going to do some updates, let's do them at the same time. So we're matching state law, both in title and in substance of some charges without changing any of the business that we or the police department do. We're not adding new charges or removing them. We're just updating them so that we call it the same thing as in state law. So that's one. And the other is the update to come into compliance with the Camp decision or to codify compliance with the Camp decision. So there are a handful of charges, and if you compare some of the language in these proposals, there are some very minimal differences that don't actually impact the substance of what we do. And so we're just going to go ahead and make things as consistent as possible so that we're not calling something battery and the state's calling it third-degree assault. We're using the same terminology.
Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, Councilor Johnson.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I want to say that I'm very, very appreciative of the process and the labor-intensive process that is put together in order to find the state corollaries. And I appreciate the approach to put the potential penalties directly in the statute. I think there's a lot of value in that. I did have, two our attorneys initial request for guidance on the process going forward. I did have 2 requests, and one was alluded to, and I appreciate it, but I want to make sure we get formal guidance here, which is, I think, a precursor step that may be helpful both from a workload perspective, but also from a stakeholder perspective and a council perspective, is I would love to see the chart of the municipal offenses that are currently in our code broken down by, M1, M2, petty theft, infraction, and muni only, and then give direction as a council on which ones to prioritize, so that you're not giving us batches that maybe we're not prepared for, or that maybe we don't want to update for whatever reason, but that the first step is let's just get a chart of all the offenses that we would need to update, and then hopefully get direction from council on which ones to start with, which ones are the most prevalent. Obviously, you have theft in there. That's a top one given the decision, but I think there are others. And there may be also some, like back to the original conversation about 1A1, some really important conversations about muni-only offenses that we want to have early in the process of maybe there is a state corollary and we don't want to make it a muni-only, or maybe if it is a muni-only, there are other implications that we need to consider as a council, including that conversation around what does that look like for potential penalties. So I would appreciate as a first step, just the delineated list to help us understand your direction and your workload, and also get some guidance from council on that workload to make sure we're in lockstep. Following that, I like the idea of breaking it up into some batches that we can work together on. I really appreciate the idea of putting these out for some stakeholder comment and then making sure that that stakeholder comment is incorporated, or if it wasn't incorporated, passed on to council so that we understand the implications and the comments that were provided in these changes. And I think that a lot of it is simply, practitioner differences that could be solved rather quickly, including my comments as a member of the city and the public that I would love to provide. And, in terms of timing, obviously, timing is important, but not nearly as important as process and understanding the workload that goes on in the city attorney's office and how big of a workload this is. I would say that of the list of priorities, the first 2 are much higher to me than as my preference than making sure we get this all done at once.
Okay, any thoughts?
So, yeah, if I could look to Mr. Fuseli and Mr. Hoff. So the police regulations of the city are all located in Title VI.
Title VI.
Yeah. So Title VI could be a place to start. And the challenge, though, is that there are offenses that live elsewhere in the code that are not in Title VI. And there are a lot of municipal offenses like, and we did a little looking earlier today, but I believe nuisance abatement, code enforcement, property standards, fire code, building code. There are the theoretical possibilities, at least in those ordinances that council had adopted in the past, of incarceration. And that's not even all of them. I think we were looking and finding more and more. So to the extent that, council might want a chart where state corollaries of all of those are identified, I don't know if all of that research has been done yet, because to the extent that, we have building codes and fire codes that the state doesn't have, that's probably the easier example to answer, that there are no state corollaries to building code and fire code violations. But if there are, I think it'll take research on a lot of different provisions to identify whether or not there's a state corollary there. So maybe Title VI could be a starting point where, the police power regulations in Title VI, maybe that's a place to start. Does that make sense to you?
I mean, I would say, I'm not currently practicing in the municipal court, so Brian can correct me, but I would say 99% of all the cases brought in municipal court are in Title VI. And, it's rare to see one that's not. So if we just limited ourselves to just Title VI to really try to update those, I think that would probably solve almost every issue that we have. And then we can take the other ones at a slower pace because they're just very rare to come across.
Yeah, if we want to prioritize what comes up the most frequently, Title VI would be without a doubt where to start.
Other thoughts?
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I think starting in 6 and just providing us with, here's the list of 6. Here's the ones that we think are M1s, M2s, petties. Here's the ones high priority to us because obviously there needs to be like the theft charge, which is very operable in municipal court. And then, the one barrier, and not that this has to be a study session, because I agree, I think we should just start moving forward with first readings after we get feedback. But the one addition would just be to get direction from council on where in that list we would like to prioritize as a council those updates before you do all this work to provide additional workload for your office, obviously taking your suggestions, and then just that extra step of making sure that it is out. We don't need to, like I said, we don't need to wait forever, but out with enough time that we get comment and that, there's an attempt to reach out to our municipal defenders and make sure that they're on the same page, which I think they will be on a lot of this because to your point, it is mostly aligning with our state statutes, would be most appreciated. But I think focusing on 6 works because maybe at that point we just revisit.
Okay, for all attorneys in the room, we're going to cut the time in half for your speaking. All right, going forward in the meeting. Go ahead. Okay, finish.
Well, I would just end with, if after we work through 6, maybe we just have the conversation about media-only offenses, and that might help guide the rest of statutory review.
Brilliant. Okay. Is this possible? Is it possible to prioritize these in a way for council?
I believe Title VI, it's a finite pool of charges.
That is reasonable and feasible.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. And then as far as the outside counsel that was requested, is that going to be an added expense or is that feasible?
I just need the contact information. I'm happy to share drafts.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, it sounds like this is all doable. Do we hear any nays against this plan? Outside counsel making those additions. I'll say personally, I really agree with getting rid of the double negatives wherever possible. Making this as readable as possible for our constituents is probably a good thing, unless I hear anyone. Okay, and then bringing it to us directly as they batch them for first reading. Is there any nays against that? Okay, folks online. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
I would just say I think we want to make sure that we take that first step of going back to prioritize things before we bring these and also get the feedback on these before we bring them for first reading. But then moving forward, I'm planning to just roll them into first reading.
That makes sense. Any thoughts on that? I see a couple nods. Yes, okay. Are we comfortable with that? Bringing back feedback on these initial 8, right?
Well, 8 and 811, I think we're good to just, or 181, I think we're just good to put on.
Okay.
But the other 8 ordinances that are following 181, we'll solicit input from stakeholders, gather that input, and is it council's preference then that it come back to a study session, or should we schedule a first reading?
Are we saying a study session?
No, I'm fine to schedule stakeholder input and then also council input, and then first reading is good, but I don't think we need council input for study session.
We're saying email, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
An email.
Is that helpful?
I think that's definitely helpful.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Any other questions or comments?
No, I think we have the direction we need. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you for your time and patience. Appreciate this. Okay. That brings us to proposed creation of a water affordability task force. City Manager?
Thank you. So tonight we do not have a presentation. I did send around earlier and included in the packet is a proposed setup for the Water Affordability Task Force. So we really wanted to check in that we got it right, in particular how the membership is determined and the timeline for that. And the timeline for the task force. I think those are the three major check-in points. Paul Knippel is here, Director of Public Works Utilities. Paul, did you want to add anything at this point? We're really here to get direction and make sure that we are heading in the right direction.
All right, will you repeat those one more time?
We're looking at the makeup of the task force. So did we get that right? The timing of the application and selection process for the members of the task force, and then the timeline for the whole task force.
Thank you. Councilor Rosati?
I'm just pulling it up, sorry. Yes, so when I saw it, it's exactly the vision. There was a question I had on timing. So I assume after tonight, the process, we can begin the application process. So it's really a question for council on what your preference is on how to select the members. Because there's many ways we've done this in the past where we've appointed, one person gets someone, each council gets to appoint one person. We've had applications, and then we have a group where we then pick the 5 residents. And the change was the existing proposal had 7 residents, correct? The change is, can we get 5 residents, 1 business, and 1 property manager? I don't know if that's in your latest draft.
I can speak to, so what's attached was the original that was forwarded to City Council and to you as well. So that included the 7, which were proposed to have 4 with some professional experience in various areas, and then 3 members with whatever would work. Certainly, obviously, council wants to change the composition to ensure a business and a professional multifamily management company. That can be applied in this process, and certainly able to make those modifications.
So I guess the first question is council okay with changing that composition to be a little more diverse?
Counselor?
Are they all applying no matter what we're putting them in?
Well, I think the second question then is how are we going to select them? But first, the composition, do we want to reduce 7 residents to 5 so that we can add 1 business and add 1 property manager?
Well, I think it'd be easier if we just all chose so many, because I don't know how many will apply either.
That's not the question. So the question is, do we want to diversify the composition? Before we get to selection? That's the next thing. But for the composition, are you okay with mixing it up? So we add 1 business, 1 or not?
Can I?
Yeah, Mayor.
Can I just ask? Sorry, sometimes it's hard to weigh in. Can I just ask, what is the composition of our water accounts, and can we use that same proportion in the representation on this task force?
It's mostly residential.
I get that. I guess there's probably, I don't know if it's, I think that would just be a good way to look at it. I know we have, I don't know, 40,000 residential. I don't know how many thousand.
I think it's about 3,000 to 5,000 commercial accounts. So it's about a 1/10, roughly.
Okay. And then what was your other, and then HOA?
A property manager.
Property manager. I at least think we should have at least, 1 property manager and 1 business on there in addition to residents.
Okay, so I hear a yes from you.
Mm-hmm.
And then Councilor Hott, did you want to weigh in?
I have nothing to add, thank you.
Okay, it's going to be a yes from me. I think a mix is very important. So Councilor Barajas?
Yeah, to Mayor Pro Tem's point, I think the mix does represent the kind of, at least a bare minimum of representation, so yes.
Thank you. Councilor Ryan?
Well, do we have to have it just 7? I mean, Seems like it'd be wiser if each of us picked one, and then we had, I think we need an HOA person, because a property manager is not the same as an HOA. The property manager manages the HOA, but there's a board that hires that property manager, and the board knows more about the water than the property manager. They're just sending out the bills or whatever.
So I think the concept was to have a multi-family representative, right? Because most of the residents are not going to be owners of multifamily buildings, and that the mechanism of how water works with the multifamily is much different than the single family. So you need someone who does that pass through, right? Because what happens is they usually just pass through the water bill, and they're being charged different rates also.
That's
for
the same with
multifamilies.
the HOA too. They just, some of them pay the water in their dues. Some of them do not, and some do. So it'd be good to have one of each.
Like an HOA manager, you mean? Or
No, an HOA president.
President?
And maybe you can have an HOA manager, because some of them pay it all in their dues, but some do not. Some of them pay on their own, like my neighborhood, we don't pay it into the dues. We all have our own water bill. But I think condos and townhouses are different.
You know, Jack's a HOA president.
Yeah, and we pay it all through our dues. We don't pay an individual water rate.
We do. So,
But we're condos.
condos and townhouses are different than single-family homes in HOA.
So if we have one HOA president, one multifamily,
one condo,
one small business,
one townhouse, one business, one big business, one small business, I think we need.
So what I don't want to do though is outweigh the residents.
Right.
With those.
That's why it's important that we pick a resident, and then we have these other people that have an input, to me.
So I think if the current proportion, right, of of the water bills is 70% resident.
It's 90.
Is it 90%?
Yeah, based on what.
Then we shouldn't have that many different.
No, we should just. pick
So I think it should be more
residents.
residents.
But it'd be nice to have residents from different parts of the city.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Okay, is anyone against adding one business owner and one property manager? Counselor?
Can I just clarify, are you, when you said adding, are you saying keep 7 and add 2 more, or are you saying?
5 and 2.
2, okay.
Which is the original.
Yep, I am for that.
And the other reasoning too with 7 is you don't want it to be too big. When a group like that gets too big, it gets unwieldy and harder to manage.
7's hard enough.
7's pretty big, but
yeah.
as we know, it's weekly. 7 can be unwieldy. So
I guess we wait and see what we get for applications.
But we aim for that, we could advertise.
We aim for that, but it matters what we get.
Any other thoughts on the composition, Councilor Hott or Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I do. I'm just wondering, with respect to the residents, if we, in the application that we create, we look at like what size lot they might have, or kind of like in terms of what housing stock are they representing, or maybe demographic, and do we have goals for making sure that certain demographics are represented, and or certain lot sizes or geographies. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Should we have that out?
We can't, it doesn't have that in there.
No, it doesn't have that in there.
Those are good points, Sarah.
get at those.
Yeah, so this is what was attached to the packet, which is a draft application form. Again, we're trying to get a timeline so we can keep it moving. That was one of the ideas. So we utilized what the Boards and Commissions application utilizes, and then took out the parts that we're specifically asking about which board you want to be on, and tried to focus it on the task force here. So under the interest and experience, that was the main area where kind of the questions really changed as far as why do you want to be on the board, the task force, what do you want to do here? So obviously, we can modify this however you'd like.
Counselor?
Do we need to, did we finish the poll so we can move into this part? Or, sorry, I just, this is important. I just want to make sure that we're,
Yes.
I don't mean to call you out.
I don't hear any nays on the composition. So we're going to move forward with Counselor Rosati's suggestion there. And then now we need to move into how do we select the board? And again, we're working with approximately 7 people. So suggestions?
May I ask a clarification? I apologize.
Yes.
So on the 7 members, the original recommendation was I'm thinking of the advertising for trying to solicit participation. Had encouraged that there were 4 members of professional experience, 3 members with no experience. Do you want us just to strike that or just say encouraged in these experience? Because we recognize that there's going to be some residents who are going to have both, or whether you want us to be silent on that part.
And I can be corrected if I'm wrong, but what I hear is we encourage diverse experience, including property owners, HOA leaders, business owners, and a background in water. And then from there, we can see who interviews and pick from that pool. And then council will get the decision.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Can we have whether somebody's a renter or an owner on there? Not to be, it's just, I feel like if we can get enough information, if we don't have certain goals for, having specific representation, perhaps if we have enough information, through that last question you mentioned, what do you bring to the table or what do you represent? But if, the owner renter kind of thing might be of interest as well for us as we're kind of looking through the results.
The reason we couldn't ask that question.
I think you could ask the question if you want to.
Any other thoughts on that?
So I completely agree with that. And also to add a question on single family or single family attached, what type of, or apartment, whatever it is, what their housing type.
Or if they're in a HOA or not.
Or HOA.
I just think it would be beneficial to clarify that applicants to this task force can also be concurrently serving on another city board or commission, because I think we have a lot of engaged residents on PRL or EOB, right, who we don't have to appoint them to this task force, but I think in order to broaden the applicant pool of engaged citizens, we should at least allow them the opportunity. And, because I know a lot of our other boards, we don't let people serve on both. So, but I think because this is so time limited, I would like to see them at least be able to apply, and then we as a council can make a decision on whether to appoint them. But a lot of engaged folks there that I don't want to leave out.
Any thoughts on that?
Well, I'd like to give other people opportunities if we can.
Me too, but we might not get a whole lot of applicants.
We should give some other people opportunities to speak out.
Agreed. So maybe we have a little asterisk, are you on any other boards?
Yeah.
And then we just make a note of that, and we, first choice goes to folks not, but open to that.
Yeah, but we should also make it clear that they could also apply for this, because typically you don't serve on both.
For the wards commission, the wards board that we did, what was that called? The wards commission?
Commission.
Whatever the name was. We each had the opportunity to just pick one. So if we wanted to really expedite this to get people in, we could just a suggestion. Not that I'm pushing for it, but there is the option of just saying each person gets to pick one person. And then we don't have to go through an application process. And
that was the easiest way to get it done.
It skips many weeks of this, but.
Could we not just take applications and then each pick one after that?
We could do that.
I just think there may be people that I don't know of that would be wonderfully qualified to serve. And so taking applications and then letting us
That's a good idea.
Pick one.
Okay.
But that does ask the question of who gets to pick the business, who gets to pick right, because there's 7 of us and 7 spots, but 1 is set aside for business, 1 is set aside for property manager.
That's why I was thinking of the 9.
Is staff opposed to 9? Is 9 too big?
How many? 1?
What I was hearing in the prior discussion was you wanted to roughly match the balance between residential and non-residential ratepayers. And so Director Knippel advised that it was about a 10 to 1 ratio. So
it'd be like,
So it'd be closer if we did
maybe
9.
like 10,
so you could do, it could,
3 outside.
So 7 residents, 1 business, 1 multifamily?
Yeah.
I just think that if we're trying to be thoughtful about who's on this board and, being fair to having as many voices heard, it might make sense more for us to kind of choose them together so that we can make sure that we have a representation versus just individually bringing someone to the board. I know it's more work to do the applications, but
We were going to do the applications and then you choose from the applications. They have to apply.
yeah. I mean, we could come with ideas. I just thought we might want to make sure that we feel like we have a representative group of folks.
Counselor?
Sorry.
The collaboration advocate here. I think there's a way, Mayor Pro Tem, that we can kind of keep this process and still do that. I like the idea of discussing and ensuring that there is a representation, but maybe we still, what I would hate to do is potentially have someone in mind that I think is perfect for this and might meet that representation, but then not get that person voted in because I can't convince the council of that. And so I think there's a way for us to be strategic, and I would presume enough grace and collaboration on this council that I think we would say, come with a couple of choices. Maybe my first pick is someone who lives in a detached single family, but that spot's already been taken, but I have a backup potentially. And I know I can't codify that in the process, but I guess I would just like to say that I want to attend to your concern, but I also think that we're able to do that with the process of potentially nominating one person. And I do want to just, while I have the floor, say that I agree with Councilor Johnson's point on getting applications, because I want to make sure that maybe I do know some people, but I also want to see who is also interested, and I would hate to have to arm wrestle someone that I think would be good if there's someone here who's excited and also equally qualified. Thank you.
And the other caveat too, right, is these residents are not really representing their own interests only, right? We're bringing them on as representatives, kind of like a council, right? We're elected, but we all live in different places, but we're not ensuring that we're covering the entire city in terms of who gets elected. So I think similarly here, we're expecting the residents to consider the entire city's needs and not just their own specific situation to the table, if that makes sense.
Okay, so I hear a majority for application instead of appoint. Do I hear any nays on that? No, okay. So that's one piece of it. Now we need to determine the how. And to Councilor Braha's point, unless I hear otherwise, I don't know if I hear a real clear consensus on the 7 versus the 9, so I think we have to identify that first. Are we comfortable with the 9, with expanding it? Okay, I see a lot of thumbs up on that. So then we'll have a task force of 9, and then from there, are we comfortable doing this as we do with our boards and commissions with a short, I don't know what it was, 2-minute video interview, each counselor in there? Maybe there could be a joint spreadsheet so we can see, as other counselors have put down a name, that name is taken already, if that's possible. But then we, from there, just choose our own person based off of that. Obviously, that leaves 2, and I'm wondering if the staff would be comfortable. Do we feel comfortable with staff choosing 2? Maybe the property and the business owner?
First, are you saying an interview process rather than
just like the video interview?
Oh, yeah. With application, video interview,
Make it
and that'll be enough.
Then we do it online.
And what was your second question?
That would leave council to choose 1 resident each, and then staff could choose the 2.
Yeah, I like that. That way staff also gets, you probably, you guys and Lindsay Kimball would probably be the best even. She probably would pick someone right away.
Does that make sense? Just trying to find a
So if
logical.
we pick the same one, then we have to pick a different one?
Yeah, that's the only thing, yeah. But hopefully we could see each other's
Hopefully we have
answers.
some of the people.
Yeah, that's, yes, hopefully, yes. So suggest that your friends apply.
So how long should the application process be?
Do we think we can solicit applications in 2 weeks, or?
So we had two alternative timelines. I don't know, Paul, if you want to walk through them.
Sure, yeah, we've got a couple of, so we would we'd post the applications by the end of the day on Wednesday. And then we could close that application process as early as March 19th, which would mean it would be open for 15 days. And then, so that one track is option one, is we post March 4th, we close on the 19th, and then we turn around on the Friday the 20th and deliver it to council, and then you all can conduct your interviews either, the week of the 23rd would be one idea. And however, that falls during some spring break and some other off times. So you could then push it to the week of the 30th, which would get you past that. But, and alternately, we could extend the length of the time to match up more to where the application process is out there. So the other alternative would be to post on the 4th and then close on the 22nd, or I'm sorry, on the 26th instead of the 19th. Gives a little bit more time for them to be out there, and then we would turn around and give those to you on the 27th, and then you do your interviews the week of the 30th.
Well, and clarifying that council wasn't talking about doing interviews. They were talking about this process where the videos landed, you all go through it just as you described. Yep.
We had it written as interviews in here, but it could be the time when you're reviewing.
So really the difference between the two is the week of March 23rd for us to make our selections by, which is third week of March, pretty quick, or the first week of April.
Yeah, so I think all of council's out that week. So I think the second option.
Yeah.
And it gives more time.
Right. Any other thoughts on that? Anyone against that? No. Personally, I agree with you. Folks online, anything else to add on the time? Yeah.
I think maybe my generation is young, but I'd rather have like paper to read, or, the videos, I don't know. I'll defer to staff if they want to actually create videos or interviews or not, but I'm fine with just reviewing an application.
I'll let staff clarify, but it sounds like they're saying it's both.
Yeah, so where it was going was we would have the application form with the modifications that council requested on the paper form, be electronic, and then the applicant can also record a 2-minute video that you could watch.
I think that's helpful.
Okay.
So
you would see the applicant, and they would describe something to you that would be helpful for you to make the decision.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Okay. Are we thumbs up all around? Any other thoughts?
So will this be online for people to fill out? Is there like an online form?
Yes. Actually, we were talking about putting it through DocuSign, is that correct?
Yeah. And then how do they do the videos? I don't know the process.
I don't know how it was done before.
So, Abby Fitch, City Clerk. The boards and commissions interviews are done there's a set of questions that City Council approved at some point. I don't remember when those were approved, but we have our Deputy City Clerk actually get on a Teams call with the applicant and ask those questions. We found that we had initially tried to do one-way interviews and people weren't responding well to that. So we actually have our Deputy City Clerk interview so they can talk back and forth with someone, and I think that has made the applicants more comfortable. If the city clerk is going to handle these interviews, we would need some direction. Probably this is true even if it was somewhere else. We'd probably need some direction as to what kind of questions you would want to ask that are not on the application, or maybe you'd want the application. I guess what I'm saying is staff would need some direction as to what you would want the video interviews to look like.
And open discussion, but I would just offer maybe we have one or two questions, which is what are your qualifications and interests for this role?
I was thinking one, right? Because this is such a thorough application. We don't really need them to
Yeah,
diatribe.
right. Any other thoughts?
Keep it simple and short.
Yeah.
Simple. Okay. Mayor Pro Tem, any other? Counselor?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
And maybe the question is like, why do you want to
Why, yeah. Why do
serve
you
in
want
this
to do
task force?
That's it. Thank you so much. Anything else? Yes.
The name?
Oh, yes.
So there was a suggestion at the strategic planning retreat. I forget what you showed, Jody.
On the list, actually.
One was the WAVE group, or task force, water affordability and value for everyone. That's WAVE. Our HR director this morning said maybe it's water affordability to every resident, which is water.
I love the water task force. The water task force?
Love it.
And he just came up with that in like a microsecond.
Who?
Davey Godfrey.
Davey?
Yeah, in a meeting this morning.
Give him a raise.
Okay.
Wherever you are, Davey.
Does that sound good? The water task force.
I've seen a lot of, that's so good.
All right, done.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Not WTF, just water.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for that. That leads us to the end of the meeting. Fantastic. So we are going to be going into executive session. So City Attorney, do we have reason for executive session this evening?
Yes, Mayor, there are 2 executive sessions proposed tonight. But before voting, I would just ask that pursuant to the municipal code, council established that the 2 members who are remote may participate in the executive session remotely. And I believe the municipal code requires a 2/3 approval to allow for remote participation in an exec session. So if you don't mind, I would just suggest that there be a poll to that effect.
A poll or a motion?
Well, I think for a study session, exec session,
Yeah.
a poll of everyone just to see that we're complying with the remote participation requirement.
Right.
Is sufficient.
Councilor Azadi?
Obi Azadi, yes.
Adam Barajas, yes.
Christine Ireland, yes.
Sarah Name? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And to the extent that there are 2 remote members of council tonight, I wouldn't ask for their participation in the poll, for their own remote participation. So thank you. The first executive session that's proposed is for the purpose of receiving legal advice from the city attorney regarding collective bargaining matters pursuant to Westminster Municipal Code 1113C8 and Colorado Revised Statute 246402 4B.
Thank you. Please state your name and answer if you're willing to go into exec session.
Obi Azadi, yes.
Adam Barajas, yes.
Christine Ireland, yes.
Jack Johnson, yes.
Claire Carmelia, yes. Councilor Hott?
Amber Hott, yes.
And Mayor Pro Tem?
Sarah Nirmala, yes.
And Mayor, before concluding the open portion of tonight's meeting, I would just ask that council consider the second exec session title, which we could roll into after the conclusion of the first. And the second exec session title is to discuss strategy and obtain direction from the city council regarding a potential property acquisition and to instruct negotiators thereon as authorized by Westminster Municipal Code Section 1113C2 and 7 and Colorado Revised Statute 246402 4A and E1.
Thank you.
Obi Azadi, yes.
Adam Barajas, yes.
Christine Ireland, yes.
Jack Johnson, yes.
Claire Carmelia, yes. Councilor Hott?
Amber Hott, yes.
And Mayor Pro Tem?
Sarah Nirmala, yes.
Excellent. Fantastic. The time is now 9:44, and we will conclude the open meeting and move into exec session. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem and Council.